Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Reactor for today, September 4th. Oh my god, it's already September. Hi, I am your host, Tristan Johnson. If this is your first time here watching my show, I just wanted to let you guys know all the things that I do streaming-wise. So, I stream, on Mondays, I do a show called The Monday Discourse with Mia Mulder from 12 to 2 Eastern Time, where we talk about stuff that's going on in the intellectual universe. Then on Tuesday nights, I do Step Back Tonight, an evening show, where I hang out with the audience and we have a nice, relaxing time. And on Fridays, which is what you're watching right now, from 2 to 5, I have The Reactor, which is a show where I collect interesting things that are submitted by viewers, and we watch together and we talk about it. Why am I so quiet? Am I quiet? Hello? Let's see if that works better. I did not know it was quiet. Maybe I'm just, I don't know. Let's get that turned up a little bit. See if that does anything good. Other than that, maybe I just a microphone position or something. Sad about David Graeber. I'm sad about David Graeber too. Yeah, I think we should probably start off by talking a little bit about that. David Graeber, a freaking amazing anthropologist, the author of some very important works, probably some of the most important intellectual pieces of writing for understanding the moment we live in. Two stick out in particular. Debt the First 5,000 Years, which was highly influential in many of my videos, and Bullshit Jobs, which I think might be the book most responsible for Kelly's recent turn towards socialism in 2020. But on top of that, one of the fiercest critics against British media, who tried to fiercest critics against the British media coordinated campaign to destroy Jeremy Corbyn's chances of being prime minister, and the man who coined the term, supposedly, coined the term "we are the 99%." And yes, he very suddenly and recently, he passed away 2 days ago now, at the age of 59. He, I gotta say, he was pretty inspirational to me. He had apparently been sick, but not seriously, and his last report is that he was feeling better, and then he died very suddenly, and so nobody really knows what's happened yet. But God damn, it sucks. It sucks so much. So that's where we're at. My favorite fiction writer, Ian Banks, and my favorite non-fiction writer, David Graeber, were both anarchists who died at the age of 59. Jeez. I better watch out. Yeah. Okay. Had someone describe Ian Banks's books to me once, that they're great Wikipedia articles. All right. I have some stuff to get through. I go by he, him pronouns, and my work can be found if you are interested in looking at my my videos and stuff. My work can be found at stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. And if you want to see my tweets, you can go to TristanPEJ on Twitter. If you are on Twitch right now, if you're watching on Twitch right now and you have a Amazon Prime account, Season 2 of The Boys just came out today. So if you got Amazon Prime to watch that, then you get one free Twitch subscription every single month. And right now, if you don't use it, Amazon gets to keep your money. So I would highly recommend that you use it to support an independent creator on Twitch, because, you know, we live paycheck to paycheck, or, you know, lack of paycheck to lack of paycheck. I just found out that August was the first month that I made positive money as a full-time YouTuber. Yay for positive money. And yeah, that wouldn't be possible without people who have helped me with their Twitch Prime subscriptions. So if you consider helping Step Back, helping me, helping Phoebe, who is right now taking a snooze just over there on my side table, I would love to. I'd love to have it. No pressure, though. I know that times are tough and there's a lot of really great Twitch creators out there, so I'm happy for whoever can spare it. My latest video that just came out, gosh, was it yesterday, is on Tristan Won't Shut Up. It's a video about political polarization and sort of the material conditions behind it, and some sort of look as towards why people are complaining that why the media sources are complaining about it, and you know, it goes to a bunch of fun places. I think that anybody who likes my stuff will not get into will find it interesting. And gosh, where am I looking? I'm looking for something. Sorry. This is how you know that I'm good at this stuff. I'm good at being a Twitch creator or internet creator in general. Yeah. Oh, we're 5. All right, we're 5 subscribers away from getting a new emote on Twitch, so that's pretty cool. All right. There was another thing I was looking for. Yes. Also, my most recent video on Step Back was on the assassination of William McKinley. Really fun video. People seem to be really liking it. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I definitely recommend it. Thank you, Stories as Models, for following. Welcome to our gang. And my next video, which I'm working on, I've already I'm working on for Tristan Won't Shut Up a part 2 to that video I did that came out yesterday. I filmed them both in one batch right now. I've done the rough cut. I haven't done the graphics and stuff and the music and everything yet. So that'll be my Sunday project, because Friday and Saturday are like my weekend days. Or should I say, they're days where I'm so busy during the day with things that aren't related to making YouTube videos that I don't add tasks that have to do with YouTube videos on those days. That's the closest thing I get to a weekend as a content creator. Because like Fridays, you know, the most productive hours of my day are spent reacting to your videos. So there's that. Yeah. So my next video is that'll be finishing up on Sunday, so patrons should be getting it on Sunday. But it'll be out next Thursday, and it's on the role of the internet on political polarization. And then the next Step Back video is on Emma Goldman, and I'm trying to desperately try to overcome what I'm calling the woman tax on Step Back content. Or should I say the minority tax on Step Back content, because whenever I make videos that are about people of color or about women, instantly the video does about almost exactly 38% worse than other videos. So I've got to think about how to defeat that. Next up, a couple more short. Sorry, I've got so much stuff to open the show with today, but I just got to get through this all. There will be no streams next week. So what that means is Tristan here is going on a much-needed vacation. And so I'll be gone from Monday to Friday next week at a cottage, and hopefully in a place where there's very little internet and I can just relax. So there will be no streaming next week. So after this stream, the next one I'll have is going to be on Monday the 14th. And then I also want to announce for the Friday for the Reactor streams, I am now, I have to deal with the situation that my link collection is getting far too big. All of you guys who submitted links, and you know who you are, you've, the list is so long because we just can't get to enough videos to cover the overwhelming, drop of content you guys send me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start doing this at the end of September, and that is at the end of the month I'm going to do a bit of a reset. So last Friday of the month when I'm releasing a Step Back video, another thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to purge the list. And so yeah, I'll be purged. So just so we can clear out all of the old videos that have been sitting around for a long time and hopefully still get caught up so that people who submit their videos have a reasonably good chance to have their stuff show up. So that's going to be a thing I do. It's not going to be obviously every week because that'd be a bit too much. So I'm hoping to do just once a month, clear it out. Because what I do is I'll go through my process. What I do is on Friday mornings, I go to all the channels that I try to get, which you can either do #StepBackReact on Twitter, or you can go to the Reactor channel on Discord. And what happens, and I just collect all the links, and then I randomize them, just add it to the pile of all the links that I haven't gotten to yet. And I just do a big shuffle-roo so that I can get the old and the new mix up together. And then that's what we go through. We go through in that order. But in the future, just at the end of the month, I'll just clear out the old queue. I also should mention that there's a non-zero chance that there might be a fire alarm test today. I know that I think that might be happening soon, so look out for that. All right. But besides that, thank you very much, One Veer TJE. Thank you for following, and Saint Isaac Leibowitz. Saint Isaac Leibowitz, thank you for following. Welcome to the Orc Gang. Thank you. Welcome to the club. All right. Whew, that was a lot to get through. I'm sorry, everybody. Just had to announce a whole bunch of things. Oh, wait. I've got one last thing, and a lot of people are not going to like it. I also am officially announcing in this stream, I'll probably announce it on the 14th too, which is that due to the increasing size of my streaming audience, the realities of time, and also the law of large numbers and the actions of unaccountable assholes, that the Tuesday night stream will no longer be featuring Quiplash and TKO. Just because we had some incidents now. The last two times I've tried to do this, ever since we've gotten the audience a little bit bigger, the last two times I've tried to run Jackbox games, they've been overrun with trolls, and so I think it's just no longer a thing that I can feasibly do anymore. I'm going to try to see if I can find a Discord-only option, but I don't exactly know how that's going to work out. But, yeah. I talked to some friends of mine, and they were saying that, yeah, what's it called? Most streamers have stopped playing Jackbox games for exactly that reason, so I guess I'm not alone in that. Oh, well. Let's see. If you're my favorite YouTuber, you have to watch out. Oh boy. You watch like 8 hours of my streaming a day. I hope that doesn't curse me. All right, let's see. Some doozies sitting in the Discord channel. Anyone else have a religion? Okay, I'm just trying to... Was voice coded me by Wikipedia Voice Intro Project. It's featured in the info box of his Wikipedia article. Recorded. Oh, David Graeber's voice was recorded by you. Oh, that's really cool. All right. Should people be boycotting Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring Black Pigeon Speaks? I mean, I think you should just be boycotting Raid Shadow Legends because the game kind of sucks. It's just a shitty mobile game that has predatory monetary practices and stuff like that with microtransactions and shit. But yeah, you should see how many like big podcasts, like how many like leftists have like sponsorships with like brands that also advertise on like I think about like the mattress people who sponsor Ben Shapiro's podcast and stuff. It's a real world out. It's a weird world out there. In theory, you could post the code in Discord first, let people join, and then only show the code in public after you've locked down the contestants. We tried that yesterday, but what happened was the trolls just went into the audience and started spamming the N-word in the background, so... yeah. Alright. Let's watch content. That's what you're all here for, right? We all know you're here for one thing, and that is to watch me watch things, which I didn't think was going to work. I thought it was like I didn't think it was going to be an idea for a YouTube channel that would actually work, or for a stream that could actually work. But, you know, it's a fairly successful format for a lot of Twitch streamers, and also... you guys seem to be liking it, so I'm going to keep doing it. All right. So, the first thing we got to watch is someone with the name M&E. This video is titled Fox Business's Trish Reagan talks with CGTN's Lu Xin on trade and intellectual property. Alright, this video is 16 minutes long, so as per my own headcanon, my attempt at making rules for such a thing, videos that are longer than like, I guess I should just keep on the constant disclaimer. I have the right to keep watching a video to stop watching a video if I think that it is promoting hate, or if I am bored and I don't think that there's much to go on, because I do get a lot of like submissions of like 45-minute long videos and stuff like that. And so if we're gonna watch something that's gonna take up almost a third of the stream, that it better be good, because, you know, I've got 129 links that I'm looking at right now. I'm a spokesperson for the Fine Brothers Entertainment. If you're using our React format without a license, I'm filing a lawsuit. Oh my god. Forgot about React World. Alright, let's see what this whole thing's about. Guess I could stop the music too. Okay.
I have a special guest joining me all the way from Beijing, China, to discuss the challenges of trade between the U.S. and her home country. She's the host of a primetime English-language television program overseen by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party.
Hey, Egomaniac, thank you for subscribing.
Everything, I believe.
Hello.
This is actually a really unique opportunity. An opportunity to hear a very different view.
Oh, you can't see the screen.
As these trade negotiations stall out, it's helpful to know how the Chinese Communist Party is thinking.
I do this for my job.
The United States.
I'm so good at this.
Now, in the interest of transparency, I should explain that I don't speak for anyone but myself as the host of a Fox Business show. My guest, however, is part of the CCP, and that's fine. As I said, I welcome different perspectives on this show. With all that in mind, I'm very pleased tonight to welcome Ms. Lu Xin, host of the primetime opinion program, The Point with Lu Xin, to Trish Regan Primetime tonight. Now, just quickly to the viewers, please bear with us as we have a significant time delay in our satellites between Beijing and the U.S. And because of that, we're going to do our very best not to speak over each other. But Xin, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you, Trish.
Everyone's talking about how the what's it called? How the Fox News person speaks really slowly. And it's like, yeah, the thing I'm learning more and more, like I did a bunch of research for my PhD about cable news, because cable news obviously in 9/11 plays a pretty big role. And what I've learned is that the model of 24-hour news networks is that they are typically on a regular day extremely desperate for content. Like they are like, this is the reason why news just like gets recycled and just talked about all the time over and over and over again. And it's because like they literally hire people to just fill as much time as possible. It's like, but while still sounding important. So makes total sense to me. The other thing too, the reason why she could have been speaking slowly, which is given that this is probably a little bit of a, hey, Darwinian realism, thank you for the super chat, acting as if their class interests aren't aligned. Yeah, basically. The other thing to mention, the other thing that it could be, which is like not unreal, is that this is probably a pretty tough video link to set up. And so she was probably just getting like her, like, what's it called? Her stage producer. She was like starting up the thing and the teleprompter was going. And then the stage producer is just like going like just like stretch it out because they're still trying to figure out how to get the connection up and running. Because that shit happens all the time. I've worked in radio and I've been like they've been trying to like figure out how to get somebody on the phone and get that thing all connected. And I'm just like, so let's just keep padding along this introduction. This person who needs no introduction is now going to be introduced for the next 5 minutes while they try to figure out how to set up the device or whatever. Anyway, let's hear what Trish and Lu Xin have to say.
For having me. It's a great opportunity for me, unprecedented. I never dreamed that I would have this kind of opportunity to speak to you and to speak to many audiences in ordinary households in the United States.
Yeah, it is indeed unprecedented.
Few people know that Tristan was a morning radio host. I wasn't a morning radio host. I ran a there's a radio station here in London, actually, called CHRW, or like Radio Western, which was my university's radio station. And I ran a radio show that was part of a committee for the Society of Graduate Students. So, and it was actually a radio show where once a week we interviewed grad students at Western about the research they were working on and stuff like that. That's sort of my thing. So so that's why like I've done so much like I want to do more like interview content at some point in the future because I actually have quite a bit of experience. I think I've like interviewed over 100 grad students on like very, very different topics ranging from like science to humanities to like all sorts of stuff. Like I've talked about like what's it called, synchrotron radiation stuff, and I've talked about like feminist themes in like in what was that movie, Mad Max Fury Road and stuff like that. So I've done a lot of interviews in my days.
Hang on.
I need to correct.
I'm going to
because
ask you. I'm going to jump in. I guess our satellites are getting kind of weird. But tell me, forgive me. You are not what?
Yeah. Trish, I have to get it straight. I am not a member of the Communist Party of China. This is on the record. So please don't assume that I'm a member, and I don't speak for the Communist Party of China. And I'm
here. I'm going to keep watching the video. I got to do some stuff.
Speaking for myself as Lu Xin, a journalist working for CGTN. So if anybody wants to quote me or anything, please put my name there at least.
Okay, appreciate it. What's your current assessment of where the trade talks actually are right now? Do you believe, give me your current assessment of where we are on these trade talks. Do you believe a deal is possible?
It is true that the satellite connection is not very good, but I believe that you're asking me where we are in terms of the trade negotiations. I don't know. I don't have any insider information. What I knew was the talks were not very successful last time they were going on in the United States, and now I think both sides are considering what to go next. But I think the Chinese government has made its position very clear that unless the United States treat the Chinese government, treat the Chinese negotiating team with respect and show the willingness to talk without using outside pressure, there is high possibility that there could be a productive trade deal. Otherwise, I think we might be facing a prolonged period of problems for both sides.
And I would stress that trade wars are never good. They're not good for anyone. So I want to believe, Shin, I want to believe that something can get done. And these are certainly challenging times. I realize there's a lot of rhetoric out there. But let me turn to one of the biggest issues, and that's intellectual property rights. I mean, fundamentally, I think we can all agree it's never right to take something that's not yours. And yet, in going through so many of these cases at the Independent World Trade Organization, the WTO, that China's a member of, as well as the DOJ and FBI cases, you can actually see some of them on the screen right now. There's evidence there that China has stolen enormous amounts of intellectual property, hundreds of billions of dollars worth. Now, that's a lot of money, but truly, I guess we shouldn't really care if it's hundreds of billions of dollars or just 50 cents. How do American businesses operate in China if they're at risk for having their property, their ideas, their hard work stolen?
Well, I think, Trish, you have to ask American businesses whether they wanted to come to China, whether they find coming to China and cooperating with Chinese businesses has not been profitable or not, and they will tell you their answers. As far as I understand, many American companies have been established in China, and they're very profitable, and the great majority of them, I believe, plan to continue to invest in China and explore the Chinese market. Well, now, U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff makes it a little bit more difficult, makes the future a little bit uncertain. I do not deny that there are IP infringement, there are copyright issues, or there are piracy, or even theft of commercial secrets. I think that is something that has to be dealt with, and I think the Chinese government and the Chinese people, and me as an individual, I think there's a consensus.
So they're just getting some random journalist of an English language Chinese news show to just try to answer to be like a spokesperson for the Chinese government. Is that what I'm trying to hear? But which I don't know. That's a lot. I don't know. Is CGTN like a state broadcaster? Is that maybe that might be something to say? Because if CGTN is like the Chinese state broadcaster, that might be something. But yeah, either way. Sorry I had to duck away, by the way. I had some people had to come into my apartment to test the smoke alarms. Because apparently they're just always testing the smoke alarms in this building.
Because without the protection of IP right, nobody, no country, no individual can be stronger, can develop itself. So I think that is a very clear consensus among the Chinese society. And of course, there are cases where individuals, where companies go and steal. And I think that's a common practice probably in every part of the world. And there are companies in the United States who sue each other all the time over infringement on IP rights. And you can't say, simply because these cases are happening, that America is stealing, or China is stealing, or the Chinese people are stealing. And basically that's the reason why I wrote that rebuttal, because I think this kind of blanket statement...
That's why they got her on, is because she wrote something. That's like a logical reason to have somebody to come on and talk about this. That she obviously wrote something. That makes sense. But so far, yeah, they've talked a lot. And they haven't said a whole lot. She was just like, it was more or less like the deflect. Like honestly, I'm like not the biggest fan of intellectual property, because property is theft, intellectual or otherwise. And so I would probably say that, I would say I'm on her side, but then she's her defense is like, well, this happens everywhere, and it's very profitable in to invest in China. So like, tough shit, which is like not exactly a wrong answer.
Is really not helpful. Really not helpful.
Well, it's not just a statement. It's multiple reports, including evidence from the WTO. But let me ask you about Huawei, because that's certainly in the headlines right now.
Sure, I don't deny those. No, I don't deny those.
Right. I mean, look, I think, as I said, we can all agree.
CG Chen is more like BBC International and State TV.
It has to be based on trust. And you don't want anyone stealing your valuable information that you've spent decades working on. Anyway, China passed a law in 2017 requiring tech companies to work with the military and the government. So it's not just individual companies, right, that might be getting access to this technology. It's the government itself, which is an interesting nuance. But I get that China is upset that Huawei is not being welcomed into the U.S. markets. I totally get it. So let me just ask you this. It's an interesting way to think about it, I think. What if we said, hey, sure,
remember when China like threatened to execute like several Canadians because the like CEO or like somebody on the board of directors of Huawei was put in prison by the Canadians, and like Canada's in a situation where like China's like, give us Meng Huawei or else we'll like just start killing all of these Canadians that live in China on like made up drug charges, and that America was like, you got to extradite her to America or else reasons. Oh, man.
Huawei, come on in. But here's the deal. You must share all those incredible technological advances that you've been working on. You got to share it with us. Would that be okay?
American tech companies never work with the government or
think
military.
If it is.
I mean, that's true. Although, like, what's it called? I'm trying to think of the situation, but yeah, like, there's a lot of collusion between American tech companies and the U.S. government. I'm trying to think of, because there was this time when, I think it was, there was a mass shooter in California where the guy's phone was locked, and it was an iPhone, and they were trying to get Apple to break into that phone for them, and Apple like refused and like fought it, but I don't remember how that turned out at the end. But like, China passed a law that would basically make doing that impossible, and in America they were trying pretty damn hard to basically force Apple to open that person's phone for them. So
through cooperation, if it is through mutual learning, if it is through, if you pay for the use of this IP, of this high technology, I think it's absolutely fine. Why not? We all prosper because we learn from each other. I learned English because I had American teachers. I learned English because I had American friends. I still learn how to do journalism because I have American copy editors or editors. So I think that's fine so long as it is not illegal. I think everybody should do that, and that's how you get better, right?
But you mentioned something pretty important.
In the end, the FBI broke into the phones themselves. Yeah, well, that's not the great solution, is it? Also, this like that law sounds like it's like tech companies have to give over any technologies that they develop to the military, which like the military in America just, instead of doing that, like there's no dichotomy in America. In America, what they do is they say, hey, American tech firm, we're just going to pay you like an astronomical amount of money because our budget is basically limitless to go and develop like a robot dog that we can use to fire missiles at children or something. So, it was like the military-industrial complex is a different, what's it called? Different shape for the same bullshit.
Which is that you should pay for the acquisition of that. And, look, I think that the liberalized economic world in which we live has
Whoa!
valued intellectual property.
Hey, Lucid Fox, thank you so much for sending some raiders over here. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for coming out. Holy moly, that is a lot of you. Hello, raiders. Oh boy, it's just a small raid. Yeah, hello. Thank you all for. I'll do the thank you for following once things die down a bit. But yeah, hi. I'm Tristan Johnson from Step Back History, and we are right now doing the Reactor, which is what I do on Fridays, where we look at stuff that's been submitted to us, submitted to me, and we react to it. Obviously, right now we're watching a video from Fox Business about. Hey, thank you for the subscription, Dogefather. Much appreciated. That's my dad dabbing, by the way. So yeah, this is a discussion about copyright law and the rights of or a copyright law and business between China and the United States. It's okay. It's two people who have like basically just are interested in advancing the interests of their own country, sort of talking bullshit past each other. So there's that. But besides that, things are going well. And also, thank you very much, Lucid Fox, for the raid. I hope that you guys had a great time. Lucid Fox, this is like, I think this is I guess this is like your normal time you end, but anybody who doesn't know, Lucid Fox runs a great morning stream. Always good to pop in. But yeah, holy moly. Cheers. Her retrospective on when Trish Reagan had a show. Oh God, what did she get stopped? What did she get canceled for? Not her show. Why did her show get canceled? But yeah. So hopefully Lucid Fox had a pretty sweet raid. I'd be interested in what you guys talked about, but yeah. Oh boy. All right. She called COVID-19 a Democrat impeachment hoax in February or March. Oh yeah, that'll do it. The kind of top quality journalism you hear from Fox News, or not even Fox News, Fox Business, which like, what is even Fox Business? Just a bit more Hillary dancing. I promise it's over soon. Yeah, I love the cursed 1996 Democratic National Convention. It used to be the High High Hopes dance back when the primaries were happening. Y'all remember that? And there was that one stream where it was Amy Klobuchar, because there was that one day between when Mayor Pete, high hopes his way out of the race to endorse the 5th place candidate, and then the Klob did the same. It's the Macarena. What's it called? All the Zoomers, they don't remember the cursed horror that was when the Macarena was popular, and all of the moms loved it. The moms were crazy for the Macarena. Alrighty. I think that was end. Oh, hey, there's my dad dabbing. Thank you, Unintendo, for subscribing. Whew. We still got a ways. Oh, man. God damn. The song is about infidelity. Is that the Macarena? It's so 90s. The Macarena reminds me of just like the 90s in so many ways. It's got that sound, you know? Alright. Nope. We still got more. God damn. 90s Democratic. The Democratic Party has always been cursed, but man, the 90s Democratic Party, look at that shit. Okay. Oh boy. Okay, I think we're good. I think we're good, guys. Why are we watching the same GIF 100 times? It's, what's it called? Because it's not every day that 386 people just decide to show up into my stream. Hello, everybody. Alright, okay, let's see if I can get all these names so I can thank you all for coming out to the stream. Alright. Hollywood Coat, OG Prodigy, Black Knight 767, Cute Sushi, The Doge Father, that was for the subscription, thank you. Red Orchid 99, on Nintendo, Brett Binla, In the Aftermath, Pseudo Guy, Abattoir 143, GS Roland, Preceptor, The Prophet 2501, Chavo Valdez, Seven Spectre, Krylar 44, Another Internet Alias, Moza G, Digital Seahorse, Look a Baby Deer, Avatar Moon Lily, Pajama People, on Nintendo with the subscription, thank you, Astral Storm, Twitchy Bite, thank you very much, thank you for subscribing again, thank you for adding Astral Storm, So Black Sis Myself, Wilson the V-Ball, Tasty Velociraptor, Conditioned Bleen, Darwinian Realism, XX Redacted 420XX, Figuratively Nobody, Snarky One, TAC 907, and Arachnac. Whew! And Christopher. Thank you. Thank you. And Lily Rose 77. All right. I think I might have to. You love the video on polarization. Thank you. Yeah, that's the one I made yesterday. I think we might need to make the thingy disappear for a little bit, because that might be a bit. It might be a bit much. So, hello. All right. So let's keep watching this video where they're basically a representative of like the pro-military industrial complex America versus the military industrial complex of China, sort of going to town on each other. And thank you, Abattoir 143, for the subscription. You're a real boss. Thank you. Okay.
And it's governed by a set of laws, and so we all need to kind of play by the rules and play by those laws if we're going to have that kind of trust between each other. But I think you bring up some good points. Let me turn to China right now, which is now, wow, the second largest economy. At what point will China decide to abandon its developing nation status and, well, stop borrowing from the World Bank?
God, these people are like, they're being so like nice with each other, but they're just like slinging shots. Like that was like one of the most let's go back. That's like one of the most passive aggressive things. First of all, yeah, talking to Lu Xun as if she's like just China in general. We're 45 minutes in the stream and we're halfway through one video. Yeah, sorry, shit happens.
Between each other, but I think you bring up some good points. Let me turn to China right now, which is now, wow, the second largest economy. At what point will China decide to abandon its developing nation status and, well, stop borrowing from the World Bank?
God damn. That's like...
Well,
that's like some mean girl shit right there.
On, and I've heard very live discussions about this, and indeed there are people talking about China already becoming so big. Why don't you just grow up? Basically, I think you said it in your program as well. China grow up. Well, I think we want to grow up. We don't want to be, you know, dwarfed or poor, or underdeveloped all the time. But it depends on how you define
like
developing country, right? If you look at China's overall size,
what was her name?
The overall.
What was the name of the person in Mean Girls? It was like Regina something. Anyone remember? Regina something. Regina George. There you go.
Size of the Chinese economy. Yes, we are very
There's
big.
some
The
Regina
world's
George
number
energy
one.
going on right
Don't
now.
forget, we have 1.4 billion people. That is over 3 times the population of the United States. So if you divide the second largest overall
And this is
economy in the
Romeo.
world, basically,
Hello, Romeo.
when it comes down to per capita GDP, we're I think less than 1/6 of that of the United States, and even less than some other more developed countries in
And he just paused the video with his tail.
Europe. So you tell me, where should we put ourselves? This is a very complicated issue because per capita, as I said, is very small, but overall it's very big. So we can do a lot of big things, and people are looking upon us to do much more around the world. So I think we are doing that. We're contributing to the United Nations. We are the world's biggest contributor to the UN peacekeeping missions, and we're giving out donations and humanitarian aids and all of that because we know we have to grow up. And Trish, thank you for that reminder.
Let's get to the tariffs. I've
Why
seen
do you
some
know
of your-
Mean Girls? I don't know. I've seen it before. I've seen Mean Girls. I also what's it called? It's an older millennial thing. There you go. Yeah, I'm not an older millennial. I'm a mid millennial. I was born in 1988, so probably it was a big movie when it came out.
commentaries too.
And yeah, it's a good movie.
Shin, I appreciate that you think China could lower some of its tariffs. I watched you say that, and I'm totally in agreement with you. In 2016, the average tariff, effectively a tax, that was charged on an American good in China was 9.9%. Now, that was nearly 3 times what the U.S. was charging. So what do you say about this? What do you think about saying, hey, to heck with these tariffs. Let's get rid of them altogether. Would that work?
I think that would be a wonderful idea. I mean, don't you think for American
Certainly
consumers, products from China would be even cheaper, and for
Yeah, like so what's it called? Like I don't know if because they're so out of sync or whatever. Trish Regan's got that how do you beat that one? Oh man, she's got the energy of a Twitch debate bro right now, where it's not about having a productive conversation at all. She's just trying to get some zingers in, but it's cable TV, so they have to be polite. So this is the cable TV version of Trish Regan owns Liu Shin with facts and logic and whatever other shit that happens in debate bro world.
for consumers in China, products from America would be so much cheaper too. I think that would be a wonderful idea. I think we should work towards that. But you talked about rule-based system, rule-based order. This is the thing. If you want to change the rules, it has to be done in mutual consensus. Basically, when we talk about tariffs, it is not just between China and the United States. I understand if you lower tariff just between China and the United States, the Europeans will come, the Japanese will come, the Venezuelans probably will come and say, hey, we want the same tariff. You can't discriminate, between countries. So it is a very complicated settlement to reach. And I
these are
think
part
the
of trade
last
deals, right?
agreement that China and the about trade, yes, I'm talking about tariffs. And I think the last time when the world agreed on the kind of tariff reduction China should commit to was exactly the result of multilateral and years of difficult negotiations. The United States saw in its interest and decided to what degree they can agree or to what degree they can lower their tariff. Nobody put a gun at their head. And China agreed to, although with some difficulties, to lower our tariff considerably.
Why do women on TV have enormous fake eyelashes? Because they do makeup different on TV, and if you have normal, I don't know if it's fake eyelashes or just intense mascara, but it has to do with the makeup that you do for television. Because if you're getting lady makeup on TV, you have to really exaggerate a lot of parts of makeup because you might not see this, but these women are being blasted with extremely bright lights that basically flushes out any subtlety in color or anything like that. So they do tend to overdo it.
It is all the decision of countries according to their own self-interest. Now things are different. Yes.
And then, as somebody pointed out, that there's like a Roger Ailes aspect to it too, which is that even though that's the case, Fox News still overdoes it because everybody who works at Fox, everybody who all the managers at Fox are like misogynistic boomers who. They will not let women look like human beings. They have to make them look like painted up dolls on TV.
As I agree, 20 years later, what are we going to do? Maybe these old rules need to be changed. You know what? Let's talk about it. Let's do it according to the rules. The same rules. And if you don't like the rules, we'll change the rules. But again, it has to be a multinational, a multilateral decision
I
process.
would just say, you can go back to the trade agreement of 1974, Section 301. There is a rule that enables the United States to use tariffs to try and influence the behavior of China should it be...
They're literally the fascist news network, which is weird because like now Fox is basically like, given the way that American political spectrum has changed, like in our Joe Biden universe, like Fox is now centrist. Like what's it called? If you look at like the political spectrum of like the political parties of Joe Biden and like Donald Trump, now you've got like on the like extreme left of like the tiny Overton window of the United States, you got like CNN and MSNBC. And then on the extreme right, you've got One America Network and whatever the fuck Trump sets up if he doesn't just buy OAN. And then in the center, you've got Fox News because fuck this. China is massive with prosperous industrial areas. Doesn't have the majority of China developing because China chooses not to invest in them. I don't exactly know the details of the interior, but there definitely is wealth inequality in China for sure. But I'm not sure.
Stealing our intellectual property. And that, I think, in some ways is part of what this all comes back to. And it's this sense of trust. And
if Fox is centrist now, how bad will Trump TV actually be for the country, assuming that we're not just at war by February? Yeah, we'll see.
I hear you on the forced technology transfer, and I think that some American companies perhaps have made some mistakes in terms of being willing to overlook what they might have to give up in the near term. But this is an issue, I think, where the country as a whole needs to step in, and we're seeing the United States do that, perhaps in a way that hasn't happened. I mean, it's been in the background. Don't get me wrong, I think previous administrations have identified the challenge, but have really been a little unwilling to take it on. So we're living in these very different times. How do you define state capitalism?
Before she gets into this, thing is like, when I talked about Fox News basically now being the political center, like, am I wrong? Because like Donald Trump is probably gonna like get a show on OAN, or he's gonna buy OAN or something like that, and like Joe Biden has moved so far to the right because he's trying to court like moderate Republicans. What he doesn't realize is that like moderate Republicans are like not like there are like moderate Republicans only exist in like politician level. Like there's so few actual moderate Republicans. Like if you want to get like a Republican base, the most moderate Republicans are the ones who are saying that he is like, what's it called? That he like drinks the blood of children and stuff. So like, and thank you very much, Abattoir, for doing a gift sub. Thank you so much. Like now, the difference between the center and the far right in America is like now like the JQ or some shit. So, yeah. Never thought state capitalism was a word that would appear on Fox. No. I'm getting some calls to skip this video. We're getting more. I'm gonna mute the alert box for a little bit, just because it's getting to be a bit much. But MS Nomer, thank you. Miss Nomer, thank you. All right. How long till QAnon is the right's go-to news? I think QAnon. I'm making. I think my video for October for Step Back is going to be about QAnon, and I have things to say about QAnon. But yeah. I honestly like it. The way that how fast it's growing, and the way that the Republican a good chunk of the United States is changing. That's just going to be like the political center. Like the difference between QAnon and like Nazis is going to be like, that's going to be the difference between the center and the right in America. And anything to the left of QAnon is going to be considered the radical left, because the Democrats just keep pushing more and more to the right. And they're doing this is like the biggest leap to the right that they've done probably since like the Clinton administration. So this will be a huge thing. How long until QAnon consumes the entire Republican Party? Probably what'll happen is, right now the current line for most congressional Democrats is to just sort of ignore QAnon or to denounce it. And if once the Republicans who like openly denounce QAnon lose their primaries to like QAnon people, then the Republican Party will get on board and start shoving it. So it'll happen. If you want, like, if Joe Biden wants to reach out to the center of American politics, he's got to promise that he's going to find the basement of Comet Ping Pong before Trump can. That Trump has been insufficiently good at finding the adrenochrome labs and stuff. All right, let's watch YouTube videos. That's what we're here for. So this video is called Revisiting Neanderthals by Simon Roper. So let's see what this is all about. I'm going to do some history on Step Back history, I guess. I don't know, depending. Archaeology.
A long time before anyone really knew who I was, I made a video addressing the question of whether modern humans and Neanderthals were the same species. And I stand by most of the points I made in that video, but now I'm sort of approaching some level of actual qualification in that kind of field. I thought I'd make another video re-addressing the question and readdressing some things about Neanderthals and some misconceptions people have and some interesting things about them. I've explained that how we differentiate species doesn't entirely depend on whether two populations can interbreed and produce fertile offspring, which is what a lot of people think is the only real determining factor. So you have things like ring species, which
this might not be a thing for streams. This guy's YouTube channel is fine, but like, I don't have anything I can really react to this, and it is a long video. Let's see. We need some more energy. That last bit, that Fox Business thing was very low energy. I want something big energy. Baby Seal defends his buddies from rescuers. That sounds like energy. Let's do this. Oh, it's so dramatic. It's like something out of a Disney movie. Hey, it's Lumiru. Hey, Lumiru.
Okay.
Look at this seal. They're trying to save him. He's got a thing stuck in his mouth.
Tony? Got his head. Try and get that. Try and force it out. Just go slowly.
Oh, this poor thing.
It's gonna hurt him, but.
Did you have him?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yes. Oh, there we go. He's safe now. Aw. This is what I needed. Look at them. Oh my god, these things are... God damn. Seals are adorable.
It's a very common kind of hook we have around here. It's for catching snook. This one was stuck in his mouth. Luckily, this thing's barb has been pushed flat so we could get it out. It's too much, without too much effort. I think for this reason, it's always very good practice for fishermen to flatten the barbs when catching snook, because it prevents a lot of unnecessary damage like this. So,
god damn, those are cute animals. That is a huge hook. That is like that's a hook you use for like catching like huge ass fish. That all right, that made me feel good. Next we got, oh boy, okay. So this has been a recurring thing on the Reactor. This is part of the ongoing campaign by my audience to try and bombard me into becoming a fan of Kaiserreich. The mod for the Hearts of Iron game that people will never let me stop talking about, apparently. So this is an alternate history. So for anybody who doesn't know what this is, Kaiserreich is like an alternate history series, or a mod, sorry, for the video game Hearts of Iron 4, which is like a World War II simulator. And this is a mod for it that is an alternate history where basically the Germans won World War I, and it basically resulted in all of the capitalist democracies more or less collapsing into like leftist infighting or leftist revolutions. And for some reason, it has like this completely, for reasons that are beyond my understanding, it has one of the most intense and huge fan bases. I guess it's not huge fan base, but it has possibly the most intense fan base I have ever seen. And they try to get me to talk and play Kaiserreich approximately every 45 seconds. Because they think that, because for someone, I've tried to play Hearts of Iron 4 on a couple of occasions. I get it now more than I used to, but it's still like very, very, it's a lot. It's a lot of game. And World War II is not exactly like my favorite like era of history, so it's a thing. But for some reason, people really, really like Kaiserreich. Like, really like it. To the point where what this is a YouTube channel that literally does videos about its made-up backstory. Probably more of a Crusader Kings guy, right? Yeah. My favorite games, my favorite Paradox games were probably Crusader Kings and Stellaris. So, let's watch a little bit of it. We'll see how far this goes, because this is like very, like, literally the title is "What If Germany Won World War I? Kaiserreich Universe Lore Part 1 of 8." Like, and the video is 19 minutes long, so it's just like, oof, oofa doofa. Let's see if it's fun. Maybe it's fun.
As German troops marched through Paris, the guns on the Western Front had finally fallen silent. The horrors of the Great War, which claimed over 30 million lives and wrought havoc upon all of Europe, had ended. The German Empire had triumphed utterly.
And so Lumi Roo, who's in the chat, is wonderful, amazing voice for non-binary people, and a very great non-binary Twitch streamer. And they recently got some gender confirmation surgery and is recovering. But if you want to watch some really great Twitch content, you should definitely follow Lumiru.
That morning, the world awoke to a new age. The age of the Kaiserreich.
Oh boy. Gotta say, this is like some good After Effects skills. Somebody spent a lot of energy to make this. So I was thinking a little bit of this. The thing that came to mind about this is like, has anyone seen the most recent Three Arrows video, where it was like, why are we talking about like this whole like attempt to make this whole thing about and thank you Avatar143 for gifting a sub to Lumiru. That's very kind of you. Yeah. So like, I'm wondering if Kaiserreich is like a really, really, really high effort attempt to do like the what's it called? Like that kind of thing that a lot of closeted Nazis do, where like that do in Hearts of Iron 4. Like if you saw the most recent 3 Hours video, there's this talk about how when you're talking about the Wehrmacht and World War II, that there's this like, oh no, we just want to do military history. We don't want to talk about fascism or the Holocaust because when talking about World War II, we want to talk about how the Tiger tank was fucking epic. Oh, the like invasion of the invasion of the Ardennes was really daring. Like, and I'm wondering if like Kaiserreich is like this really, really high effort attempt to have their World War II and not have to face the like essentially like what World War II really was, which was like the pinnacle of states becoming so big and so powerful that they basically just some of them became so nationalistic they just kind of imploded. 3 Hours plays Kaiserreich? Interesting.
January.
I know Dan plays a lot of Hearts Iron 4.
Wilhelm II, Kaiser of the German Empire, holds a council with his military advisors. These councils are regular, but this one will bring about a decision that changes the course of the war. High-ranking military officials, including the head of the Imperial Naval Office, von Capelle, join Chancellor von Bethmann-Hollweg in urging
I did a whole
Kaiser
video
not
about
to
Paradox's
resume
development
unrestricted
team.
submarine warfare in the Atlantic Ocean.
I could talk about that forever. I did a video about Paradox's development team and how they fall into a lot of the sort of pitfalls of European game developers. Like it's like I mentioned at the beginning of the video about it. A game called Puerto Rico, which is another like German or Euro style board game, depending upon what word you want to use for it. Because there's a lot of board games and strategy games in Europe that are like very, very detailed, intense, complicated military stuff and like economic simulators and like all these kinds of things. And in many ways, they fall into these pitfalls of like Eurocentrism and pro-colonial like narratives. Like basically, Puerto Rico becomes a resource management game where literally your resources or like the people working your resources are slaves, and the box is full of like these brown coins that are supposed to represent all of your slaves that you have working in different like areas in order to maximize your economy. And like that's super fucked up, and that game has gotten a lot of controversy for it, but like it's very prevalent in like the European tabletop and video game sphere that yeah. Thank you so much, Princess Terra, for following. Much appreciated. And Rudolph Rocker. Hopefully that makes sense. That Taiga tank is fucking epic. Yeah, Warhammer 40k is another hobby that's full of quote-unquote in-game fascists. That's true. I wish Paradox would make a Cold War game. That'd be my fucking jam. Yeah, the only thing is that there's two things. One, they tried. There was an attempt to make there was a game that was in production, and it was starting as a Hearts of Iron 3 total conversion mod, but then Paradox actually swooped up the development team of the mod to make a Hearts of Iron Cold War game, or a Cold War Paradox game, but it fell apart. And two, I think the reason why is because the ClassFits engine is, which is the sort of thing that the Paradox games are based on, is not good for modeling a lot of the things that you would need to do to make a fun... you couldn't play a Cold War game in which you just play as a random country and start, invading and annexing countries. The way that Paradox games are designed is that they would have to be, really overhauled to handle things like coalitions, alliances, spheres of influence, proxy wars, funding movements in other countries that you then have to hope that they turn out okay. It'd be almost like Crusader Kings, except with all just intrigue and sowing dissent, rather than what people like when they play a lot of these Paradox games, which is painting the map your color with troops, which was not exactly a thing that would play.
Fearing the inevitable attacks on American shipping will draw the United States into the war on the Allied side.
Victoria 2 actually might be a better engine for running a Cold War game.
Brace themselves for defeat when Eric Ludendorff argues in the strongest possible terms that...
Alright, yeah, I'm not digging this video. We need something that I can actually respond to.
What do you think of when someone mentions a pit bull?
Alright. This one should be fun. So this is Pit Bulls in a Race, a response to The Pit Problem from Jose, who is a YouTuber who's a friend of mine and really good. So this is a video about... This is something that I could actually sink my teeth into. So this is... Thank you for following Soy Boy. Or sorry, Soybo1. Okay. The Entente Simps are for the Kaiserreich subreddit. Kaiserboos don't seem to have the... Man, I'm learning so many new words. I don't know what an Entente Simp is. I don't know what a Kaiserboo is. There's a lot of new nouns in that sentence that make it complicated. Okay. So this is I'm just gonna any random video that gets put on this, I just assume it's 255 AD unless somebody says otherwise, because he submits about 95% of all the links. I think he just watches YouTube videos and he's like, oh, now that I have finished watching this YouTube video, I will now submit it to the Reactor before I watch my next YouTube video. This is I know that he happens to own a pit bull, and that pit bull acceptance is dear to his heart. So I don't I've made comments on my stream in the past about pit bull people and how pit bull to a certain segment of the pit bull people, it's the only political issue that exists. But I don't actually know too much about it because I never got to own a dog as a kid. I really want one, but we have 2 cats right now, and we live in an apartment. So I don't think I'll be getting... If I get a dog, it'll be after long consideration, but I don't really know too much about pit bull politics, and so we're going to delve into a new world, and I'll learn something. And seeing it as being associated with race is an interesting thing, so let's go.
Do vaguely suspicious images like these come into your mind? If you're like me, and most other people, someone put those images in there. In recent weeks, certain folks on Twitter have been pushing an anti-pit bull narrative that's filled with half-truths, bad research, and lots of other fear-mongering. If you've been following the news about pit bulls over the last few decades, you might think they've co-opted a legitimate controversy around the pit bull. But the stigma attached to pit bulls go deeper than that. This new wave of anti-pit bull rhetoric is tired garbage, cosmetically altered with minimal effort. Which brings me to this video by Brittany Venti, The Pit Problem. While going through this video, I'll spare you any and all images of animals or children being mauled. If you're interested in checking out Venti's video, be warned, it has a lot of that in there.
Is that Jose the Bird?
Literally
Yeah.
just goes right into it, no warning. So here's that warning for you. Like all great thought leaders, Brittany Venti was motivated to make this video after she saw a sign on a truck and some memes posted on the internet.
I never really thought about doing a video until now, and I think now is the perfect time to do so. There's trucks driving around New York with LCD screens saying to ban pit bulls, and Petco just banned pit bulls from playing with other pets at their stores. And I've seen a lot of anti-pit bull memes in the past few months.
Pit bulls, like...
Just want to like mention that like this is like a bit of a traumatizing bit of like my childhood, but like just like on this note, maybe this is what I used to be. I used to actually be pretty afraid of big dogs because of this incident that happened when I was a kid, and now that I've like grown up, I've kind of gotten over it. But goddamn. So I spent a good amount of my childhood with a babysitter who she bred Chihuahuas, and when I was like playing in her yard, I watched like I saw it like probably like the age of like 7 or 8 or 9. The next door neighbor's like Irish wolfhound just completely destroy one of my babysitter's Chihuahuas, and the dog got put down the next day. But like, holy shit, like I saw that live and I was like, oh god. And big dogs used to scare me for quite a long time because of that, because seeing that kind of shit when you're like 7 or 8 years old can be pretty traumatic.
And
now Phoebe's here.
In her video, were bred from bulldogs. Bulldogs were originally bred in England for the hideous sport of bull baiting. This involved tying a bull, or sometimes a bear, to a post and having several dogs maul it to death, or die in the attempt. The sport was banned in 1835. With bull baiting banned, these dogs were sadly conscripted into another blood sport, that of dog fighting. The breeding pressure now shifted over to producing dogs that would be aggressive towards other dogs. So the pit bull was born. A little-known fact is that the majority of dog breeds were created in the 19th century and often represented the interests or desire of the upper classes of a given society. Particularly wealthy individuals would breed dogs, because they could easily afford it, to generate specific characteristics or traits or even just physical appearances that they liked. Once a dog no longer had any purpose to the upper class, or just was no longer popular, it would often be discarded and fall in with the less discriminating lower classes. This is what happened to the pit bull. Although the pit bull...
Phoebe, so people are freaking out about Phoebe. So this is Phoebe. This is my kitty. I have 2 of them. Phoebe is the one who I think spends the most time with me, though. She's an old lady, and she is a beautiful mackerel tabby who I think mackerel tabbies have to be like the prettiest cats in the world, because they like got this like kind of like gray brown thing with stripes, and it's like
was still used for dog fighting. The vast majority of pit bulls tended to be family pets and were no longer being bred for blood sports. Its formerly purebred genes have had well over a century of mixing to dilute the breeding done to it in the 19th century. It's also important to know that when people refer to pit bulls, that term includes at least 4 distinct breeds and several mixes. Also, boxers, Akitas, and Shar-Peis were all historically bred for fighting too, but they don't get portrayed as dangerous the way pit bull.
My roommate used to have a boxer. He had a boxer mastiff mix, and his name was Buddy, and he was like the friendliest dog in the universe. But like, holy shit, was he big! Like a boxer mastiff. Think about that. So like, its head was like this, and he was so friendly. He was like the nicest dog ever. But like, he had the droopy face. Like he had this boxer droopy face. He drooled all over everything. And I swear, I I used to joke a lot that he was not so much a like large dog as he was a small bear. Like he was like the biggest fucking dog.
Bulls are. So when people like Britain.
Oh, and also, so we had this boxer mastiff dog. There's one time where my roommate was visiting his girlfriend. Like he was over at her house for the night, and he had he left Buddy behind. You know, he walked him and stuff like that. So he you know, but then in the middle of the night, the fire alarm went off. And I had never I've like, you know, Buddy's fine. I've pet him and I've hung out with him a little bit. But like, I hadn't like, you know, commanded him or had to control him in any meaningful way. But this fire alarm went off at like 2 a.m. and it was probably like negative like 20 outside because it was like the middle of winter. And I had to somehow wrangle, like, first of all, Buddy freaked the fuck out because, you know, fire alarm plus dog, I think in all contexts is just not a great combo. But then I had to somehow get this like 150-pound dog on a leash and outside in a way that was like, you know, where he wasn't just going to like run away and like tear my arm off or like just like completely overpower me and run off. And so that was a whole situation.
Venti talk about their breeding history to paint pit bulls as inherently dangerous. It's fear-mongering, plain and simple. And the pit bull story doesn't end in the 19th century, but let's return to the video before talking about the pit bull in 20th century America. Venti tries to explain dog breeding by saying,
it's just a natural instinct that has been selectively bred by breeders. Dogs are going to do what they were bred to do. Some dogs are meant for herding, some dogs are meant for hunting, and then some dogs are meant for herding.
What I think she's trying to get across here, the English language be damned, is that she is a big believer in genetics driving behavior, and that a dog bred for a purpose is tied to that purpose, as its genes will only allow for that limited range of behavior selected by a breeder. While traits can definitely be passed on to other dogs through breeding, without that continued selection pressure, traits can
Jose is from
fall out of
Toronto,
favor.
so he's probably going to talk about the Ontario pit bull ban that happened when I was a teenager. So let's see what happens.
Evolution doesn't stamp a finished label on any species, and some breeders have found pit
This
bulls
guy's
can lose
nurture
their
over
aggression
nature?
within 2 to 3 generations.
So is that a problem?
Milestone that the vast majority of pit bulls have lived past, as, and this may come as a surprise to Brittany, very few pit bulls are bred to be fighting dogs. But Brittany Venti isn't interested in that, and this video isn't about representing science.
Very good Michael Vick representation there. Very few pit bulls are bred to be fighting dogs.
It's about getting you to believe that genes are what dictate behavior.
Pit bulls are the most dangerous dog. I'm referring to not only pit bulls, but their variations and any mixtures of them. The mixtures are even more dangerous because sometimes you won't even know it's a pit bull.
Okay, let's think this through. If pit bull genes make a dog violent, why would mixing those genes make a dog less violent? It's almost as if she's saying pit bulls will taint any other breed they're allowed to mix with. Consider what that would sound like if she were talking about human beings for a moment. But right now I'm just reading subtext. Venti clearly said the danger was because people wouldn't know the dog is half pit bull.
There might be a situation here in a second.
On people and how they treat dogs. But hey, I'm just picking on her poor presentation skills now. There are actual bits of research that are shown throughout this video, all found on that noted academic journal, Twitter. The highlighted captions all come from Twitter user WildGoose999, some Twitter person who hides behind a bird avatar. What kind of jerk does that, right? Let's drill down on a few of the specific claims made by this guy. To keep this video reasonable in its length, I'm going to pass over some of the irrelevant ones, such as groups trying to change the name of pit bulls, thinly sourced claims about pit bull advocates being cigarette shills, or that pro-pit bull groups are secret Satanists, because none of those have anything to do with the supposed threat of pit bulls, and I don't want to waste time.
We've got a situation here. We have 2 cats. I don't exactly know how to process this. So we've got Phoebe here and Romeo here. We've got a 2-cat situation. So that's a thing.
in the video, although the Satanism one was hilariously not true. First, there's this little graph that points out that Michael Vick's conviction is some kind of catalyst for pit bull attacks. For those who may not remember, Michael Vick is a former pro football player who operated a dogfighting ring that killed a number of pit bulls. What the graph is suggesting is that pro-pit bull sentiment that came as a reaction to the story.
Thought they dislike each other. They have moments. The thing is, they're cats. This is the thing. The first thing you learn when you have two cats in one house is that the line between hating and liking each other is flexible. Sometimes they're best friends, and sometimes they attack each other. It's just sort of like a cat thing. As you can see, it didn't last super long.
Friendlier to pit bulls, and therefore more vulnerable to attacks. The numbers on this graph are compiled from this dataset. Now, the big problem with this dataset is that it is made up entirely from media reports. It's not an actual measure of dog bites across the US, but rather...
I will say they were much meaner to each other when we lived in a 600 square foot, one-bedroom apartment. They had a lot more territorial issues. Here, they have a lot more of their space. They have a lot more space, and so they fight a lot less. And they play a lot more. I think that the main problem we had is just that because we had to move so fast to Toronto, and that we were living in Toronto, that like our place was way too small. And so eventually, like, we had the issue with just the cat, like the cats just moved into, we just had way too little cat and way too many cats in way too small of an apartment. And it caused a lot of territorial issues. But now we're good.
The ones reported by the media. The growth in anti-pit bull sentiment was heavily fueled by media coverage in the 1980s about pit bulls.
You're in Toronto right now? That's good. I recently, like 2 months ago, moved to London, so I was able to get a big enough place that the cats have their own space. Is 600 feet big? No, 600 square foot apartment is very, very small. But I actually am going to take a quick break to head to the washroom. So, you guys, I'll be just like a couple minutes. Let me just get some music going for you guys so that, you know, you're not completely devoid of content. All right. Just be like a couple minutes. Alrighty, I am back. My apologies for taking a quick trip off to the washroom, but the cats were both gone, so I thought it was a good opportunity to do so. Okay, so we were continuing to watch our video from Jose about pit bulls and race, which makes a lot of sense to me, the way that he's framing the conversation anyway.
It's being out of control, and this has more or less been an old standard for local news reports across the US. The dataset also suggests dog bites are exploding, going from 731 in 2002 to 2,975 in 2013. What if we compare this to a neutral data source for a better measure, though? According to the CDC, using data from hospitals across the United States, in 2001, 368,245 people were admitted to a hospital for dog bites. So if we assume the total number of dog bites stayed the same in 2002,
Pitbull ban under the Liberals of the Tories,
let's even round it down to 360,000, the total number of bites reported in the media represent 0.2%.
Are Canadian Liberals to the right of the UK Labour Party? Oh yeah, extremely to the right. Liberals are closer to what I think in the UK would be the Lib Dems. Much more kind of like that.
And of all dog bites. I should also point out that this bit of research wasn't peer-reviewed or published anywhere but on the website animals247.org, created by the paper's author, Merritt Clifton, a longtime anti-pit bull advocate. He has no serious academic history or credentials, and his research has largely been popularized by the very slick-looking dogsbite.org, sitting along blog posts like this one.
See, this is the part I don't get. I had never I got that, there was fierce pit bull defenders who were you know what, you do you, that's it's interesting that they're the passion of pit bull defenders is so. I did not know that there were just equally passionate people who just hate a breed of dog. That's such a weird thing to just get hung up on, especially because if I remember correctly, that while pit bulls and stuff like that are representative of, if they even are representative of the most amount of dog bite deaths, if I remember, the second highest is labs, and no what's it called, labs don't have any reputation for being anything but good boys and good girls. So I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's earned.
That's not exactly what I would call a constructive criticism of the scientific literature.
Plus, pit bulls aren't that common to dogs, which is weird.
There's a great blog post that drills into the numbers of Clifton's pit bull attack stats and how they often count ridiculous stories such as a horse kicking a woman after it was startled by a pit bull, or an animal control officer slipping and falling while chasing a dog, as pit bull attacks. Give it a read if you want to hear some of the more ridiculous claims. These slides throw out some damning numbers, but here are two things to keep in mind. These all relate to specific communities and not national averages, and they compare singular breeds with a number of different pit bull breeds blended into a single stat. The last of the tweets Brittany Venti cites for her video is a thread where WildGoose999 discusses how it's the genetics of the pit bull that create aggressive behavior, and that owners have nothing to do with it. The first slide is from Dog Bites in Urban Children, published in Pediatrics in 1991. The first limitation of this paper is that it looks at dog bites reported in a single Philadelphia hospital in 1989, so again, you can't always generalize one community to an entire country. The next problem we run into is the actual data in the research. This table here breaks down the number of bites by breed, and we can see that pit bulls actually weren't the most common. It was the German Shepherd. The paper's discussion section, where the excerpt is taken from, does go into detail about.
Yeah, aren't German Shepherds, even today, still bred to be attack dogs? Isn't that, the official dog of, the canine units, and, whenever somebody, when they breed, attack dogs for, security things?
Pit bulls, but the two paragraphs shown by WildGoose999 are less connected than he might have you think. The second paragraph isn't really about pit bulls specifically, but dogs in general. The idea that genetic differences influence behavior is a controversial one, but to tie that influence to breed is the shell game that's being played here. Why is the only term highlighted genetic predisposition? The other factors of early socialization to people, training or maltreatment, quality of care and supervision, and behavior of the victim are also factors. Wild Goose 999 is arguing that a pit bull's behavior isn't relevant to the actions of its owner, but the non-highlighted variables would be influenced by a dog's upbringing and environment.
Racism, but now for dogs.
Variables are at least as important, so why emphasize genes? Possibly because Wild Goose 999 has an agenda here, and he's willing to twist the research to get that across.
Now I'm just remembering when Donald Trump, I'm trying to remember what the incident was, so maybe somebody here remembers, when like some sort of military thing happened or some sort of police thing happened, and Donald Trump like made like a really big statement about praising the dog that was involved for some reason.
Let's move on to the next one. Mortality, Mauling, and Maiming by Vicious Dogs, published in 2011.
Didn't he give the medal to a dog or something?
Surgery. Now, the quote Wild Goose 999 uses is actually not from the paper he's citing. The Annals of Surgery paper is actually quoting someone from a different paper here, so let's go to that one. Dog Attacks, Deaths, and Maimings, U.S. and Canada, September 1982 to December 31st, 2013, by... Oh, it's our old friend Merritt Clifton. In fact, this paper is the same data set I debunked earlier. And if you look through the Annals of Surgery paper, it actually cites all kinds of research from dogbites.org and other bits of spurious research from Clifton that hasn't been peer-reviewed.
Like, why are people doing, like, I'm wondering, like, the motivation of people to do all this, like, shitty research because they just hate a breed of dog. Like, it's such a weird thing. Like, but, like, I can almost get, like, passionately trying to defend the breed of dog that you like. But, like, holy shit, what are these... What is the deal with these people who are like obsessed with hating pit bulls? Like I'm honestly like, this is not that's not me being like, oh man, what's their damage or whatever, but like I want to know what like actually is the reason that they're so hung up on this.
Reviewed. It even includes a YouTube video as one of its sources, so technically I guess my video here has just as much academic weight. This makes me question how careful these researchers were in putting together this paper. But I'll be as charitable as possible here and say, perhaps they're seeing something in Clifton's work that I'm not. Their paper closes with this passage. These breeds should be regulated in the same way in which other dangerous species, such as leopards, are regulated. I'm not sure pit bulls should be considered as dangerous as leopards, but they're the scientists, I guess. Slides 3 through 8 all come from a paper titled, Are Pit Bulls Different? An analysis of the pit bull terrier controversy, published in 1987 in Anthrozoos, a multidisciplinary journal of the interactions of people and animals. Now, all these points come from the same section of the paper, but even in these selected sections,
pit bulls are
Wild
popular
Goose
with the working
999's
class.
intentions are betrayed. The first slide reads, A long history of breeding for bull baiting and fighting has had a profound effect on the genetic predisposition of many of the fighting breeds. In many cases, a shorter history of selection for qualities that might make these animals suitable as household companions has counteracted this effect. Why highlight the genetic predisposition and ignore the rest of that passage? Aside from the fact that it basically contradicts everything you're trying to say in your little Twitter thread. The other slides are similarly irresponsible and do little to represent the actual findings of the paper. If I wanted to cherry pick something that showed fighting dogs were no risk to humans, I could just post this from the next page. Aggression towards people. The fighting dogs of the 19th century generally posed little or no threat to people. These animals were disqualified in the pit if they exhibited aggression to their handlers or other people. Early in this century, several former fighting breeds, such as the Bull Terrier and the English Bulldog, were specifically selected for their good dispositions around people.
See, like, okay, there was actually, like, a few years that I had a dog. Because my parents got a dog in 2008. And I moved out of my house. Like, I moved out my parents' house in 2010. So there was 2 years there where I had a dog, and he was great, and I miss him terribly because he's passed away now. But, God, he was a Jack Russell Terrier, and he was great. Just wonderful little guy. God, this is making me want a dog. That's probably not what this. Kelly will be super upset if that was this is what I took away from this. But God, I wish I had a dog right now. I just want a good boy to hug and hold and to make into an emote.
But what is this paper really about, and what argument is it truly making? We can find that easily enough at the end of the paper where it says, "Problems of irresponsible ownership are not unique to pit bulls, nor will they be in the future. For this reason, we feel that effective animal control legislation must emphasize responsible and humane ownership of sound animals, as well as responsible supervision of children and animals when they interact." So this paper isn't about the evils of pit
Get a
bulls,
pit bull.
but instead advocating
if I were to get a dog, I would be. Oh no! Phoebe's about to cough up a hairball, and she was about to do it on top of the modem, but she's gotten it out of the way. Oh God, that's new fun to clean up afterwards. Okay, so yeah, what I was saying is that if I was going to get a dog, it would have been a what's it called? Some mutt from the pound. My favorite breed of cat and my favorite breed of dog are mutts. And that's it.
for owners to be held to a higher level of responsibility. It doesn't seem like a good paper to use in a thread about how owners don't matter when it comes to pit bull aggression. The last 3 slides all come from Dog Bites to Humans, Demography.
This Wild Goose guy is very preoccupied with hating just a kind of dog. It's so weird.
Epidemiology, Injury, and Risk, published in 2001 in Vet Med Today. This paper isn't really about pit bulls specifically, but dog bites in general. Less favorable traits could mean anything when talking about all dogs. To get more specific, a few paragraphs later, the paper says, investigations of unpredictable aggression have produced no firm results regarding heritability. The next slide is a bit vague, but you might be interested to know that this comes from a section titled Issues of Fact and Myth, and the spot he cut off goes on to read, a careful reading of the literature supports 3 conclusions regarding breed. The breeds most represented in dog bite data vary over time. Breeds most often represented in published data are popular ones, and no one breed may be represented in bite data in proportion to its actual population. And pit bull is often applied without biological basis to a range of dog types, regardless of the underlying genetic stock. So the paper is pretty clear in stating that the pit bull stigma isn't because they're genetically bad dogs. And the last slide is...
Should get a Staffordshire Bull Terrier. You know what? Any dog breed that has the word Staffordshire built like in it sounds like it's a dog that costs $4,000. And if I had to pay more than like $400 for a dog, I'm not going to do it.
Is, surprise, surprise, also misleading. Reading just a few lines above it, we can see a fuller use of the text reads, caution is urged regarding any generalization about inappropriate breed specific.
So the thing is, like, if I ever go to get a dog, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Humane Society and be like, hey, what kind of dogs you got? And then I will choose from amongst them.
Specific behaviors. Selection for specific behaviors should be viewed as a risk assessment analysis. Breeds that have been selected for one or few specific behaviors may be more at risk for developing undesirable variations on those behaviors. This excerpt comes from a much larger section that, again, isn't specifically about pit bulls, but dogs in general. At best, you can try to connect this to how pit bulls may have been bred to be more aggressive to other dogs, but this part of the paper is a discussion of where more research needs to be done to minimize future dog bites. It's not saying anything about the relative danger posed by pit bulls. Whew, so, all the garbage in that thread has been dealt with. It's incredibly difficult to track which dogs are responsible for dog bites, as most people aren't typically trained to identify dog breeds. Even people who work at animal shelters often mistake dog breeds. Most reports of dog bites, particularly in the media, but even...
And I just looked at... I actually just took a look at the London Humane Society, and I saw that they've got a lot of... you got 2 Jack Russell Shih Tzu mixes, and a Shih Tzu, and a German Shepherd, and a Cane Corso? I don't know what that is. I've never heard of this dog before. But it looked big. But I think that's not today. I'll always just look. But then I know that like Kelly will Kelly will get like really upset if I got a dog. So won't do it right now.
Even in scientific
His name
literature,
is Obi-Wan.
can
Yeah, he
state
looks pretty
what
cute.
breed a dog might actually be. Here are some pictures to give you an example. Can you tell which one of these is the American Pit Bull Terrier? That's one of the 4 distinct breeds. And don't
Miss Worldwide. I'm glad that we haven't talked that what's it called? We got this far into a video about pit bulls, and we haven't had the discussion about the most dangerous breed of pit bull, which is Mr. Worldwide.
Don't worry, none of the other pictures are of the other 3 distinct pit bull breeds. If you want to think this over a bit, you should hit pause on the video because I'm going to give you exactly no seconds for that. It's this one right here.
There's even a whole paper on pit bull owners lying by omission about their dog breeds to other people. They pretend that their dog isn't bull-blooded. So they're also pretending that their dog isn't more powerful than other dogs by a long stretch and are more likely to attack. That's a very dangerous scheme to play, pit owners.
Brittany Venti brings up a paper titled Managing the Stigma
Mary,
of
Mary,
Outlaw
Mr.
Breeds,
Worldwide.
a case study of pit bull owners, published in Society and Animals in 2000. It discusses how pit bull owners often lie to...
I don't know anything about pit bull's personality or anything, but if pit bull got me too'd, I would be not surprised even a tiny bit.
others about their dog.
He like radiates like that energy. Plus his like songs are often about sleeping with women constantly, or about like basically like treating women like they're like resources or something.
In order to avoid the stigma placed on pit bulls. The paper explicitly says owners do this not because their dogs are dangerous, but because of the social stigma attached to them. Here's a quick excerpt from the paper. Our work suggests that non-human animals also can be stigmatized, although they will not have a conscious awareness of this perception. However, as part of a human-animal team, their owners can experience the taintedness that is commensurate with this stigmatization and resort to various techniques to mitigate, prevent, or improve such adverse perceptions. Another source Brittany uses is the What to Expect If Your Community is Discussing Breed-Specific Legislation, BSL in brackets, which isn't actually scientific research, but a set of instructions from an advocacy group to a municipal government thinking of passing breed-specific legislation. It's not peer-reviewed, there's no record of where it was published, or even who the author is. That's the bare minimum of what you need for something to even look like a proper scientific source. You may as well just use some asshole's random Twitter account as a source. The video ends with Venti reading some shitty memes, selling merch, and then advocating for breed-specific legislation.
So you guys might be asking, what's the solution to the pit problem? The first solution is to just ban pit bulls. Some places have already done this, and it is an effective way to prevent a lot of the dog maulings that happen. There's actually a GoFundMe for that if you guys wish to support it.
The CDC and the American Veterinary Medical Association are both against breed-specific legislation, citing there is no scientific evidence to support it. BSL laws in the UK were shown to have no real effect on the number of dog bites that led to hospital admissions. And in my hometown of Toronto, dog bites actually went up after pit bulls were banned. Results vary by community, but it does show how this legislation is often misguided, and the money put towards its enforcement might be more effectively used in teaching owners how to take care of their dogs. And darker still, dogs that are seized as part of BSL laws are impounded, and many of them are eventually euthanized. But you might be wondering, why is some low-grade conservative making a video about pit bulls? I hinted at elements of racism early on, and please no one hate me for this pun, but this video is a dog whistle. This guy in the comments heard it. This dog whistle is being employed by race realists, also known as racists, to propagate the idea that genetics are what drive behavior, and that if we can measure bad behavior in a specific group, it must be a product of their genes. In other words, they want you to believe that pit bulls are naturally cruel and dangerous, so you'll believe that black people, or any people of color overrepresented in crime statistics, are naturally cruel and dangerous too. The connection between pit bulls and peoples of color is just a nice way to synergize those two things.
Oh boy.
Here's the rest of the pit bull story I brought up in the beginning of the video. In the first half of the 20th century, there was a surge in love for the pit bull in the United States. The working class of the country took very fondly to pit bulls, not having the high price tag of purebreds and fitting in
I always try to give money to homeless people when I could afford it. Yeah, I try to as well. It got a bit difficult when I moved to Young and Wellesley because I basically lived in a place where, like, I lived near a place where a lot of homeless people hang out, and so that made going outside without losing a few toonies a bit difficult, but I still tried.
Nicely with the idea of the tough working class. Pit bulls were beloved family pets and minor celebrities across the country. A notable example is the pit bull terrier Sergeant Stubby, who served in World War I.
Oh, Sergeant Stubby? That is the cutest name for a dog ever.
Things were going great for pit bulls for a few decades, but something changed in the 1970s and 80s.
Toonies, are you Canadian? Yeah, I am.
Guard dogs and dogfighting had become increasingly common, and so increasingly common in the media were reports of dog bites and stories of dogfighting rings. Guard dogs were popular with Americans who felt they needed protection local.
Yeah, now that I don't live there anymore, I used to live at Young and Wellesley, and at what's it called? I learned after I moved out that everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that's like one of the intersections that it's like, oh yeah, don't go there at night." And I was like, "Oh shit!" I lived there for like 3 years, and I never had any problems.
Law enforcement couldn't or wouldn't offer. This often included the urban poor, as pit bulls were relatively common and far less expensive than purebreds.
Sergeant Stubby is a great name for a dog, and I kind of want one. I kind of want to name a dog Sergeant Stubby.
Hundreds of dollars. Pit bulls became popular with dog fighters for similar reasons. While the vast majority of pit bulls weren't tossed into fighting pits, the ones that were became prominent fixtures in press coverage, and this is where the myth of the vicious pit bull really begins. Stories of pit bull attacks, while not necessarily statistically higher than other breeds of dogs, were frequently seen in newspapers, and once this reputation was created,
it's a media freak out.
Anyone who might need a vicious dog would be more inclined to get a pit bull and to raise it up as such. This created a cycle that got worse in the 1980s when the war on drugs began. Pit bulls were increasingly associated in media narratives with drug dealers, using them as vicious protectors, and drug dealers in the 1980s, in the minds of a white suburban readership, were black or Hispanic. Pit bulls, by proxy, got saddled with the racism.
I gotta hang on to Stubby. That is such a good name for a dog.
That was targeted at their owners. And while some dog breeds, such as Dobermans and St. Bernards, have weathered negative public opinions after a few stories about bites, the association with drugs and some good old-fashioned racism gave pit bulls a stigma that wouldn't fade so easily.
Black males, we are America's pit bull. We're labeled vicious, inhumane.
I honestly don't know.
A recent news article
when
uncovered some examples of how alt-right posters on 4chan are trying to push the pit bull meme to advance.
The current status on "Can I get a dog?" is yes, but I wouldn't be happy if we did. So I will have to navigate those waters.
It's their usual racist narrative, and certain enablers, like Brittany Venti, are all too happy to help them along. Now, I don't know for sure if Brittany Venti herself is a racist. I'm not really that familiar with her work, to be honest, but she certainly is being used by them to advance a narrative. That makes this video deeply irresponsible and dangerously misleading. The story of the pit bull does have an important lesson. Genes are undoubtedly a part of our behavior, but social influences like breeding pressure don't create meaningful, lasting changes. All animals are a product of their environment and how their genes interact with it. So instead of treating a dog like a public menace, treat them with love and compassion. And don't let dog discrimination be your gateway into thinking that people
Show
who
your
don't
partner
look like
Sergeant
you
Stubby.
are genetically
I should.
inferior.
She's got a weird relationship with animals in general. Anyways, not for me, not a story for me to talk about. Anyways, that was fun. That was a good video. Let's see what we got next. So this is how the U.S. economy just lost 33% of its value from Economics Explained. I don't know much about Economics Explained. I hope that it's a good YouTube channel. I think I watched Economics Explained. I think I watched a video they made on EVE Online. But we'll see where this goes.
U.S. economy has contracted 32.9% in the second quarter.
The country.
As the pandemic
this is the worst performance since records have been kept that started in 1947. It is worse for a single quarter
than we ever saw during the Great Recession. Really terrible number on GDP. We're waiting for the rest of the GDP breakdown.
Just reported its worst economic plunge in history.
Last Thursday, on the 30th of July 2020, the US Bureau of Economic Analysis released its second quarter gross domestic product report.
God damn, look at that. Look at that. That is the worst. We haven't seen the full repercussions of this yet.
The report noted a 32.9% contraction in annual GDP growth in the months of April, May, and June. A 32.9%.
I also had a friend here. I used to have a friend here when I lived here before. I don't know if she's still around. But she used to own greyhounds that were rescued from racing. And that sounds good.
Drop in any financial statistic is massive. An individual company whose stock price dropped by 33% in 3 months is concerning. If the entire stock market dropped by this amount, it would make headlines, and it did. But GDP is something else entirely. It's not a company or even a pool of companies. It reflects the entire US economy. So, this kind of figure is concerning on a proportionately larger level. For reference, the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis saw an 8% drop in annualized GDP figures at its peak. The Great Depression kicked off in 1929. To date, the largest economic downturn in modern history saw a reduction in US GDP of around 30%. This period could reflect the largest pullback in US prosperity since GDP figures were measured. The fallout of the coronavirus has of course been devastating, but could it
See, that's the other thing too. Someone said small dogs bark a lot, and that's true. Yeah, they'll never make peace with cats. That makes sense because rescue greyhounds love to chase things. I know because Phoebe, like before Kelly and I moved in with each other, Kelly's last roommate before we moved in together owned 2 whippets, which are sort of like little greyhounds, and man, they love to chase Phoebe. So that's that. We're still on yeah.
Really be a driving force significant enough to push the US all the way back to where it was in 2008. For close on a century, developed economies have almost assumed growth is a given. There are ups and downs, obviously, but the march of technical innovation and industry means that the markets will grow at 8% per year, the economy will grow at 4% per year, and children will live richer lives than their parents did. Over the generations that these assumptions have held true, they have cemented into the minds of politicians, investors, and regular families. People model their retirement strategies off these figures, investment funds try to outpace these arbitrary figures, and economic policy is based around these figures. So, is this all just a great big hiccup, or is this the modern sacking of Rome? The catalyst that will see the end to the holy growth empire? This episode of Economics Explained was made possible by our fans on Patreon. If you'd like to gain early access to these videos before they're uploaded to YouTube, as well as participate in our exclusive Q&A sessions, please consider supporting our channel on patreon.com/economicsexplained. Now, of course, this all sounds very alarmist, and the media has never been known to downplay issues before, especially when it involves big scary numbers that people scarcely understand. Even on this channel, we have pointed out many times that GDP figures are not the be-all and end-all in an economy, especially during times of massive turmoil. In the interest of managing concern, it is responsible to first approach these horrifying headlines with just a pinch of skepticism. Is it all that bad? Now, we are not in the business of patting people's heads and telling them it's all going to be okay. So yes, it is that bad. But it's important to understand for whom it is that bad. GDP is measured using this formula. GDP equals consumer spending, plus government spending, plus investment, plus net exports. Now, the overall 33% drop has come from a few specific places. Government spending, for example, has actually increased, driven primarily by the massive stimulus packages that have been given to businesses and individuals impacted by the economic fallout. Trade is the first area of concern. The actual net figure of net exports only saw a reduction of about 12%, which doesn't seem so bad, but this is a net figure. Both imports and exports fell by over 50%. Primarily due to travel restrictions.
Damn.
It just so happens that exports fell 12%.
Trade got cut in half, holy crap.
More than imports, which is all that shows up in these net figures. Drops in these major industries are extremely concerning, and if anything, the severity of this figure is downplayed by GDP. But of course, the biggest factor here is consumer spending. Consumption fell by some 39%.
Yeah, people are still talking about dogs. If I were to get a little dog, I'd want to get a beagle, and they're like the loudest dogs in the world. A new Contra video dropped? Oh boy.
Which is terrible. Although, there are some interesting takeaways here. For starters, the consumption of goods only fell by...
Just because I've been watching Enterprise and Porthos is so cute.
11%. The major drop was in consumption of services, which fell by 49%. Now, services like an Uber ride, a night at the movies, or even a semester of college are actually quite hard to purchase, regardless of consumer sentiment right now. It's reasonable to expect that this service spending should shoot back up to more reasonable levels once it is safe to do so. We can be even more optimistic about this assumption due to a strange bit of good news that has come buried amongst all of these doom and gloom figures. Household incomes have actually increased. That's right, despite all of the headlines about unemployment and forced pay cuts, the average household is bringing home more cash now than it was at the start of 2020.
This is like one of the things that economists always do to mask the problems, is that so they'll, instead of like dealing like if unemployment goes up by like a huge amount and like the wealthy get like a whole lot more wealthier, they'll be like, no, it's fine. The average amount of income went up, when like really like the news should be like, I don't know. I feel like the focusing on the average is not like as useful as like, you know, the fact that there's like more people who have nothing. Like dealing with like I always feel like economics should be focused always on the people who are doing the worst, not dealing with like, you know, the fact that Jeff Bezos has like doubled his wealth since the pandemic started, which is definitely going to skew the numbers.
Spending slightly less.
Median works a little bit better, yeah.
On goods and considerably less on services, this additional funding is either going to savings or to pay off debt. We explore this more in our video on can saving too much cause an economic downturn, but the key takeaway is that
beagles are gorgeous, but not the easiest breed. Yeah, they howl. They're like they dig. They're scent hounds, so they love to go and sniff. Like they'll run off to sniff if they find an interesting smell, and then they'll want to roll in it. But and yeah, they bark a lot and they're loud and they're prone to howling and stuff like that. But like they're just so cute.
Saving money might slow down the economy right now, but it means people will have more to spend later on. What this then means is that the economy could be poised to come out of hibernation filled with a renewed energy and a stockpile of cash, right? Well, yeah, potentially. A good litmus test for this theory is to consider your own plans for when this whole ordeal blows over. Sure, for some of you it will be to go out and find a job and get life back on track. But a majority of people watching this still have regular employment, which means their plans probably involve travel or hitting the club with friends or maybe just remodeling the house that they've been trapped in for so long. And all of this adds to GDP, which means that this figure could shoot back to a more realistic level. It won't go all the way back to where it was before 2020, but it will come back. Another huge point...
What are you doing with your cats when I'm on vacation? We actually have a friend of ours who we pay a lady to come and feed the cats. We know her. She's met them before. We knew her from before we left to go to Toronto. So that's what we'll do.
Point that must be clarified here is that this negative 33% GDP figure is annualized. What this means is that no, the economy did not actually shrink by 33% in 3 months. It shrunk by about 9%, which, extrapolating that figure out over the full 12 months, would lead to a 33% reduction in GDP. Of course, this is often overlooked because this looks much scarier than this. Finally, the last little bit of good news is that the second quarter results were actually better than expected. Given all of the turmoil in the world, this figure was actually expected to be about negative 36%, so it's better than it could have been. So, hopefully this has provided some much needed comfort for people that were anxious about all of these concerning headlines.
There you go, everybody. The Economist says that because the average amount of income went up, therefore everything's fine. All those people who are homeless, all those people getting evicted, all those people who lost their jobs, whatever. It's fine. Because it wasn't as bad as we thought it was.
Take a nice deep breath, relax a little, and let me tell you why we're all f***ed.
Here we go.
This very well could be the end of growth as a given. The first concern that must be addressed is that demand has shrunk despite an increase in household income. This household income has been almost entirely driven by government stimulus, which has not only made up for lost employment dollars, but actually surpassed it. These programs cannot last forever.
Hey, it's
They
Mia
will either
Mulder.
end up causing crippling debt or runaway inflation if genuine economic output does not at least keep up with the level of money creation. All this means, sure, everything else being equal, consumption will bounce back and the economy will be saved by people.
Oh no, is this going to be like, it sounds like it's good, but it's bad because inflation's going to happen, and inflation bad because I'm an economist. Which we've already talked about how inflation is basically bad for banks, but good for anybody who has any debt. You hate this channel so much. Are you talking about Economics Explained? Mia Mulder is more of an expert on stonks than I am, so she understands how economy work.
People once again buying their smashed avocado toast and lattes. But of course, the assumption of ceteris paribus is not always a responsible one to make. The most obvious example of where everything is not going to be held equal is welfare. Most governments around the world have set end dates for specific relief packages that have been attempting to bolster their respective economies. In the United States, for example...
Yeah, like the thing is that the economy shrank 9% in the second quarter, but also that's because the US government, to like a very pitiful extent. But like the thing is, like, we don't know how bad the COVID effect is going to be, because to this point, most countries are still like on life support, where the government is basically, money machine go brr to keep the economy just functioning. When that goes, when the emergency money goes out, when the emergency COVID funds dry out, when we have to somehow keep, like, when all of the COVID stuff goes away and just capitalism exists with like an absolutely deflated economy, where do you go from there? Because I'll tell you, it's gonna sting. It's gonna sting hard.
The $600 per week supplementary federal unemployment benefit ended earlier on the 31st of July, with no specific replacement yet confirmed. This will very quickly turn the additional funds that people could have used for post-lockdown spending into emergency funds that people will need to hold on to out of fear of losing their income. This is all coinciding with a wave of rental and mortgage relief periods coming to an end, which will either see people out on the streets or having to contend with repayments that have been stockpiling over the last few months. This is all ignoring the problem of investment. Investment is the final component of GDP, and it fell by an unbelievable 49%. This means a few things. The first is that new businesses are not getting funded because, well, now is hardly the time to be picking promising new startups. Conversely, it also means that a lot of that extra cash is just sitting idle. Normally, if people save money, it's okay, because financial institutions can just use that money as the foundation for an investment strategy, be it writing loans.
Yeah, they can go and gamble with other people's money.
Or investing into other assets. The sheer drop in savings indicates that not even banks, the ones that are collecting all of this extra cash, are compelled to put it into use in any way in the economy. In turn, this means that there is a lot of cash sitting idle, which sounds like a good problem to have.
I hate that, like, investment firms and banks and stuff like that, like, I mean, this is going to be such, like, a, like, duh thing to say, but, like, basically the entire existence of our economy is, like, whether or not people get to eat food, pay rent, have jobs and whatnot, is contingent on whether a random, like, a group of banks are feeling confident enough to invest, to throw more money into the economy, to throw more money into investment. And for some reason, an entire like an economic structure that's based on that being the central thing that keeps the engine that keeps the economy running, nobody seems to think that that's, like, really, really bad. And the only thing that, and, like, they hold governments hostage to the point where, like, if they don't feel like they're confident enough to start investing, they'll just, like, demand the government give them, like, literally trillions of dollars as like a ransom fee to get them to start doing stuff. Ugh.
But it is a problem. While this cash is not being used for anything, it may as well not exist. But if it suddenly falls into widespread circulation very quickly, it will cause inflation. Let's take a wine country bed and breakfast as an example. Right now, this kind of operation would be shutting down or working on very limited reservations because, well, not many people are willing to frivolously spend a few $100s on a weekend away at the moment, and even if they could, they might not be allowed to. Instead, they would just sit on this extra cash that they are saving by not having to commute to work or by earning through generous government relief programs. If and when everything goes back to normal, they might finally decide to book that weekend away and find that, unfortunately, every other yuppie on the West Coast had the same idea. The bed and breakfast is booked out for weeks, and the only available nights that they have are at a steep premium due to the surge in cashed-up demand and the fall in supply of all their competitors going out of business. Take this oversimplified example and apply it to every service out there, and inflation could start to become a real problem. Who knew the money printer could have some side effects, eh? Now, in the same vein, if and when everything goes back to normal, institutions and wealthy individuals might be more tempted to go out and...
He's like, you can tell he's, like, very subtly attacking the fact that, like, emergency stuff was happening, that people weren't just, like, left to just, I don't know, die because they had no money for work. Like, to have both an economy that requires you have gainful employment to just have the right to survive, and to have an economy that, like, to at the same time complain about, like, when emergency things are done during emergencies is, like, oh man, there's just, like, absolutely no empathy for poor people at all in this video. The average is going up, so everything's fine.
And invest again, and they will find that, hey, only a...
Yeah, economists are fucking ghouls, exactly. Every economics textbook is like, Chapter 1, what a resource, and if I have, like, what's it called? What a supply and demand curve looks like. And then Chapter 10 is, like, why it's actually good that poor people die. Economics Explained says that he acts like a heartless economist. Yeah, sounds like
a few investment-worthy businesses exist anymore, so they will drive up the price of what might have been a reasonable investment to such a level that it no longer is. For example, Tesla is an attractive investment because it is a company championing genuine innovation and adding value to an otherwise stagnant market. It might have had great investment potential at $400 per share, where investors could reasonably foresee 20% year-on-year growth. This would have actually been a fantastic investment, since the market normally only returns about 7 to 8% annually. At $1,400 per share though, those same prospects are looking less enticing. The same nominal returns would only give you a 5.7% return on investment, in which case you may as well have just bought a broad market index fund for less risk and better returns. We don't want to pick on Tesla here because nobody can predict the future regarding any individual stock. But
Corey's going to talk about Tesla, yep. Tesla is, I don't know how Tesla is like a company that, like, it's a company that's I get a feeling that, like, sometime it's going to be exposed that Elon Musk is, like, one of the greatest con men in history. Because he's built this entire bubble around a company that is, its promise is, like, literally, here's its companies. Changing cars forever by making $30,000 luxury sedans. 2, going to Mars somehow. We'll figure that one out later. And, like, and also making these underground tunnels that, like, literally nobody gives a shit about. Like, the fact, like, the guy has made, like, the guy's a scam artist, and he has been able to convince, like, he knows how to speak to Silicon Valley angel investors and basically convince them of anything. Yeah. Also, I just want to point out that some people are kind of implying they want me to play the new ContraPoints video that just came out. And unfortunately, if I started playing it now, the stream would be, the end of the stream would come up before the video ended. So I don't think we're going to be able to do that today.
Again, in this bigger picture, this effect will happen everywhere.
Yeah, most tech companies are scam artists. You scam angel investors into making a product. Then you spend tons of money and get in huge amounts of debt to grow whatever technology platform you have and make it bigger. And it creates this huge tech bubble. And then then it bursts. Like, I can never forget, what's it called? I can never forget the ultimate description of a completely valueless commodity made by Silicon Valley and pushed only to become only to, like, completely collapse instantly when everyone realized it was terrible. There was Yo, which all I know about Yo is that it was a social media app where the only thing you could say was Yo. I don't know anything else about it. But I was thinking about, do you guys remember that juice thing? Where it was going to be this, like, Silicon Valley thing where, like, you'd buy these packs of juice and you'd put them in this thing and it would give you juice or something. And then that it's so weird because, like, it was literally all the machine did was Juicero. Yeah, that was the name of it. Is it would squeeze, like, a Tetra Pak of juice into your cup. And, like, that's all it would do. And people found very quickly that you could buy the packs, the Juicero packs, and squeeze them with your hands into your cup. And it was like, what is the point of this? Why does this exist? But, like, it got a ton of angel investment. And I remembered because, like, perennial, Silicon Valley, like, what's it called? Silicon Valley bootlicker and potential scam artist himself, Casey Neistat, had one of those Juiceros. Just like remember how Casey Neistat was like, I live in New York and have no reason to have a car, but I'm buying a Cybertruck anyway. Tristan, read my comment. Tristan, read my comment. I can go to YouTube heaven. Oh, okay. I'm not that special.
Institutions and individuals will buy into mediocre investments because they have to. They have too much cash at their disposal and they don't want to hold on to it due to fears of inflation. This whole problem of too much cash sitting idly by, ready to overinflate any attractive stock that passes by, has a name. It's called dry powder. Anecdotally, it's called this primarily amongst people in finance because a little bit of a spark is good to get promising things going, but too much can have some explosive results. Okay, fantastic. This problem is all going to get worse because average people won't have enough money and rich institutions will have too much money. What else is new? Well, the big difference this time is the centre of the devastation. The 2008 subprime mortgage crisis was led by malinvestments into mortgage-backed securities that were ultimately worthless and heavily impacted financial institutions. This malinvestment was ultimately driven by easy access to cash and a lot of government support. The fallout of this crisis hit financial institutions particularly hard, and that trickled down to regular consumers. The 2000s tech bubble was led by malinvestments into tech companies with little real-world promise. This was driven by easy access to cash and a lot of government support. The fallout from the subsequent market downturn primarily impacted those invested into financial markets.
You have ad blocker. Yes, I do. I think that YouTube is almost unusable without one at this point.
Rich people and institutions. But it trickled down to regular consumers as well. The economic fallout of 2020 will likely happen the same way, but this time it started on Main Street. The shutdown forced people out of their jobs, which prompted massive stimulus, which led to easy access to cash through a lot of government support. This will lead to malinvestment, which will lead to market crashes, which will then trickle down to regular people. Most economic downturns ultimately amount...
I can't recall who, but some comedian summed up modern economic history or theory with, "You see this line on the graph? That means poor people should starve." Sounds about right.
To a hangover from a period of drunken excess.
This is Phoebe.
The good times feel great. The economy regrets it in the morning, promises to never drink again, and only goes on to inevitably repeat the whole thing 10 years later. The only problem is that in the 90s and early 2000s, the economy was getting drunk off cognac and champagne. It might have been temporary, but it did feel good while it was going. This caused what is known as a balance sheet recession. Basically, it all took place on the balance sheets. Right now, the economy is drunk off lighter fluid and metho. It doesn't feel good now, and it's going to feel a hell of a lot worse later on. We are in a structural recession right now, caused by tangible limitations like not being able to go outside. If a regular balance sheet recession comes after this, it will compound to have some very dire consequences at all levels of the economy. Will a regular recession follow this? Well, who knows? Again, nobody has a crystal ball, but the thousands of businesses only propped up by generous government support, relief packages coming to an end, record unemployment, mountains of idle cash, and genuine losses in productive potential are not great signs. But this all begs the question, should we, or even could we, do anything differently? What are the alternatives? Of course, this whole problem would be a lot less severe if it wasn't for a global pandemic. But the reality is that the economy was likely overdue for a recession anyway. Record levels of household and business debt were piled up over 10 years of record low interest rates, and the bill had to come in eventually. Hindsight is obviously a luxury, but this problem really needed to be addressed 5 years ago. When the going is good, low interest rates are a dangerous tap to keep on. It means that people and institutions are tempted to borrow, or rather overborrow, to buy that new house or car or whatever stock portfolio. It also means they are less likely to be incentivized to save because that 2% in a high-interest savings account will barely keep up with inflation. Of course, this was addressed in early 2016 when the Fed started to raise rates again, but it was probably too little too late.
What's your alternatives? I think that it's fairly well known. I think that it's pretty easy to guess that it's the fact that maybe having an economy that is so fragile that like one shock to the system leads it into like a decades-long collapse, or a decades-long like huge negative feedback loop of fucking like what's it called, of like disaster and misery. Might just say that maybe just having an economy that's run by pretty please having a few people in the 1% invest in things is just not a, way to run things.
This was also probably more of a surface level issue to the deeper underlying problem. Investing should be hard. How many times has it been said that investing is easy? Just buy broad market index funds or good residential real estate, wait enough time, and hey presto, you are historically guaranteed returns. This flies directly contrary to what is supposed to be the role of an investor in an economy, which is to use their knowledge and intuition to effectively allocate capital towards productive businesses or promising ventures. Investors in modern economies are rarely rewarded for being savvy or prudent. Their returns are almost exclusively determined by how much they are investing. On top of this, investments normally attract lower taxes or at least accommodate more loopholes than regular earned income. A popular, albeit controversial solution is just to make investing difficult, be that through higher interest rates, making leverage less lucrative, or through...
The structural problem is lost productivity too. Yeah, that's true. But like, if you had an economy that was democratically managed, once things get things get back on track, you could just restart the economy. While like in America and like in the world with this capitalist economy, we have to like fiddle with all sorts of things to get people to feel confident enough that they can start maybe investing in things again. Thank you, who just followed? Gonchorn and Loranaga. Thank you for following. How you know your cat is a communist? Well, if they watch So Much Left too, I don't know. Probably Phoebe has for sure. She's spent a lot of time with me by my computer.
Through higher taxes on unearned income, people should not necessarily be able to set and forget a portfolio of Vanguard ETFs and live the rest of their life off passive income and capital gains. These investors don't control...
Cats are more anarchists because dogs are communists and cats are anarchists because cats don't like being told what to do.
Contribute towards productivity,
but they're still loving.
But they do feed off it. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I am a passionate advocate for the financial independence movement, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that movement is great for the economy. Informed people investing into hopeful businesses that have a plan to add value to society, that's great. Wealthy investors blindly throwing money into dollar-cost average portfolios comprised of the same inert assets or established companies that everybody else is investing in, potentially less great. Again, this is a highly controversial idea, but one that deserves discussion. Let us know how you would handle earned versus unearned income in a comment below, and we will discuss the most upvoted answer on this week's Q&A session. A wise man once said that this illness is just the UV light shining to reveal a fundamentally broken economy. Could this be the end of the wholly growth-based empire? Well, the sacking of Rome in 410 was not the end of the Roman Empire, but it was a major symbolic loss. The spiritual foundation of the empire had gone over 1,000 years without falling into enemy hands. A 34% drop in GDP probably won't be the end of the age of innovation, but it does show that things may not always be as easy as just throwing money into the abyss. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed this latest video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. This video was, as always...
Investors are incentivized to do things that fuck up the economy, but the system can't work without them. Golly, it's almost like this capitalist system was built on contradictions or something. Yeah. I love that, like, it reminds me that, like, in a smaller version of this, and another, one of the greatest scams going on right now, Bitcoin, that there are actually, like, services now where what they'll do is they'll buy a bunch of Bitcoin so that the price of Bitcoin goes, like, way, way up. And then they will have whoever paid them to do it will then go and sell all their Bitcoin so that the price goes up, and then they'll sell it back and stuff like that. It's like, oh god. So yeah, I think the main thing that this video shows is that, like, economists, like capital E economists, have they have such an ideologically driven, narrow view of acceptable solutions to problems, and how things should work, that, like, market economies are taken for granted. Capitalism is a universal good and should never be questioned. And then, because of those ideological blinders, they more or less see like these like fluctuations in these like these capitalist negative feedback loops and stuff like that as like just a force of nature, you know? It's just part of how the world works. Nothing you can do about it. You might as well get mad at a mountain. Like, and it's like, no, that's not how it works. Anyways, let's watch another YouTube video, shall we? This is Killer Mike's Reagan. This is a music video. Alrighty, let's see what this is. Let's watch this. Hey, thank you, Right Bunny, for following. I do like Killer Mike. I got a little ticked at him on the Hello Somebody podcast a while back because he was like, basically he said something about compassionate capitalism or something, which is like, oh, whatever. But still, he's great.
Our government has a firm policy not to capitulate to terrorist demands, that no concessions policy remains in force. In spite of the wildly speculative and false stories about arms for hostages and alleged ransom payments, we did not, repeat, did not trade weapons or anything else for hostages.
Oh, you totally did, motherfucker.
Of the bullet. Some freedom or some bullshit. Will we ever do it big or just keep settling for little shit? We brag on having bread, but none of us are bakers. We all talk having greens, but none of us own acres. If none of us own acres and none of us grow wheat, then who will feed our people when our people need to eat? So it seems our people starve from lack of understanding, cause all we seem to give them is some ballin' and some dancing and some talking about our car and imaginary mansions. We should be indicted for bullshit we inciting, telling children death and pretending it's exciting. We are advertisements for agony and pain. We exploit the youth, we tell them to join the gang.
I just realized that this might get me a copyright strike. So I think I might just turn this off. Sorry, it's a good song, but I just realized that I might get a copyright strike for playing an entire song without like commentary or anything like that. My bad. All right, so this is an article. Revolution and American Indians. Marxism is as alien to my culture as capitalism. Interesting. So there's going to be a bunch of reading on my part. The following speech was given by Russell Means in July of 1980 before several thousand people who had assembled from all over the world for the Black Hills International Survival Gathering in the Black Hills of South Dakota. It is Russell Means' most famous speech. A member of the Oglala Lakota tribe, he was perhaps the most outsized personality in the American Indian movement beginning in the 1973 occupation of Wounded Knee. He also had an acting career beginning with the role of Chingachgook in Last the Mohicans. He passed away on October 22nd, 2012 at the age of 72. Okay, let's see. Wasn't this the dude from AIM who was in Pocahontas? I had no idea. All right, let's see what this is. Let's all right. The only possible opening for a statement of this kind is that I detest writing. The process itself epitomizes the European concept of legitimate thinking. What is written has an importance that denies the spoken. My culture, the Lakota culture, has an oral tradition. So, I ordinarily reject writing. It is one of the white world's ways of destroying cultures of non-European peoples. The imposition of an abstraction over this spoken relationship of a people. It's a pretty good statement. Take that, CGP Grey. Fucking CGP Grey. I'm still mad about the CGP Grey thing. All right. Let's go Laura's 1964 platform to the right of Reagan's 80 platform. I asked you the other day, but I can't remember what you said, and I can't check because you deleted the VOD. I'd have to take a look. I don't remember a lot of what Barry Goldwater ran on. We talked more about what impact his campaign had on the American conservative movement, but we don't really talk a whole lot about what he actually ran on. What's CGP Grey thing? CGP Grey, basically, I unsubscribed to CGP Grey a few, maybe about a year ago or so now, because he made a video that essentially said that oral history is more or less worthless, and I responded with hey, no, that's how we because of what he said here, indigenous people. There's a lot of people, not just indigenous people, where their history only exists as oral traditions, and CGP Grey, by not acknowledging the value of oral history, is going to constrain his ideological sphere to basically just the perspectives of white colonizers, and never listen to the words of those who were colonized. And since he talked about which state owns the Statue of Liberty, I think that was the video that was oh, you are bad at this. What's it called? When that happened, I was just they both stole it. If you had listened to oral history, you would know that neither New York nor New Jersey have right to that island because it's stolen territory. But whatever. What do you think about Mr. Beat? I'm good. Mr. Beat is actually a friend of mine. We talk quite a bit, so him and I've gone to museums with him and his family and his kids and stuff like that. So he's a pretty good friend of mine. His videos are fun. I think they're good. I think he's good for what he does. Don't you feel like outright rejecting the written word is a bad in the exact opposite way? We're both sidesing. We always have to both sides every issue. I think that there's a good point here, though. Sure, writing has tons of uses. I'm not gonna lie. And nobody's denying that writing is good and useful. It's just that, yeah, the emphasis on written history and the emphasis on writing as being important or official or whatnot has done a lot of damage to basically it basically erases indigenous or basically non-literate cultures' histories. Because that's really the only way you're ever going to get it. Who called history irrelevant beyond the Cold War? That's the whitest thing ever. I did not know that CGP Grey did that. Jesus Christ. Is he even training humanities, or is he just a YouTube know-it-all centrist? I think he has a degree in physics or something. He was a high school teacher for a number of years, but I think he had a degree in physics before that, and then I think he had another degree in he had a double major in physics and something else that was kind of humanities-like. Is oral history no longer oral history if it's written down verbatim, and would it be better if it was recorded or would be needed to be spoken directly? I'm not against oral history. I solely support it as a matter of historical record. I mean, I working with oral sources is a valuable thing, and I think that maintaining oral traditions and oral history is a big deal. But in many ways, oral history in the history field, amongst historians, is typically about collecting history via what's it called, interviews and stuff like that. This guy seems to be. I don't know if he's against the concept of writing. That's a bit much. What he was saying is that he doesn't like it, that the process. Yeah, I guess. You have to kind of see it from his perspective as a Lakota man who has basically seen his entire culture be brutalized and destroyed by white supremacists. Like, I can understand the perspective he's coming from. Maybe I disagree, but I think that, like, you know, given the experience that this exact person's had, this is like kind of a legitimate take. Not criticizing Native American reactionaries akin to Germany, not criticizing Israeli occupation of Holocaust. Endogenous people are not immune to fascism. This isn't fascism! He's just saying that he, what's it called? That this guy who has an active, like, you know, what's it called? This guy who has an active experience with white supremacy, and most likely with, like, American-style residential school system stuff, like, it could very easily be interpreted that indigenous people have had to deal with the fact that, like, their culture has basically been targeted for systematic elimination for centuries, and that in many ways, like, he's not wrong by saying that, like, the insistence and the emphasis that's put on the written word is definitely a way that colonizers have used to dismiss indigenous history and dismiss their experiences. It's most definitely a thing that I would not like. That's his point. He hates Marxism because it's white. All right. Well, let's actually see what the guy's point is first. If a culture is reduced to a written word at the dead, there's something too. Sounds a little anarcho-primitivist. Are they okay with writing? I don't know. Anarcho-primitivists are not people I've interacted with a whole lot. Anyways, maybe that first, maybe this is what's it called? Anti-colonial, like, reading decolonial texts can sometimes be, especially for people who live in settler colonial societies, can sometimes feel much more aggressive than it actually is. I obviously, this is going to be a spicy article, and the first paragraph has already set off a bunch of people, so let's just keep going and see where it goes. So what I've read here is not what I've written. It's what I've said and someone else has written down. I will allow this because it seems like the only way to communicate with the white world is through the dead, dry leaves of a book. I don't really care whether my words reach whites or not. They have already demonstrated through their history that they cannot hear, cannot see, they can only read. Of course, there are exceptions, but exceptions only prove the rule. I'm more concerned with the American Indian people, students, and others who have begun to be absorbed into the white world through the university and other institutions. But even then, it's a marginal sort of concern. It's very possible to grow into a red face with a white mind. And if that's a person's individual choice, so be it, but I have no use for them. This is part of the process of cultural genocide being waged by Europeans against American Indian peoples today. Just keep in mind that I'm reading him verbatim. I'm not a person who would necessarily use the word American Indian. I prefer to use indigenous people and such, but I am quoting another person. All right. My concern is with those American Indians who choose to resist this genocide, but who may be confused as to how to proceed. You notice the term, I use the term American Indian rather than Native American or Native Indigenous people or Amerindian when referring to my people. There have been some controversy about such terms, and frankly at this point I find it absurd. Primarily it seems that American Indian is being rejected as European in origin, which is true, but all above terms are European in origin. The only non-European way to speak of Lakota, or more precisely the Oglala, Brule, etc., and of the Dine and the Miccosukee, and all the rest are several hundred correct tribal names. That is the proper, yeah. Referring to the nations by the nation's name is the smarter idea. if it's applicable. Man, so this is a guy who is definitely at his fucking wit's end. Yeah. I think this is an important perspective. But yeah, it's not mine because I'm a white guy. There is also some confusion about the word Indian, a mistaken belief that it refers somehow to the country India. When Columbus washed up on the beach of the Caribbean, he was not looking for a country called India. Europeans were calling that country Hindustan in 1492. Look it up on the old maps. Columbus called the tribal people he met Indio, from the Italian Indio, meaning in God. It takes a strong effort on the part of each American Indian not to become Europeanized. The strength for this effort can only come from the traditional ways, the traditional values that our elders retain. It must come from the hoop, the four directions, the relations. It cannot come from the pages of a book or 1,000 books. No European can ever teach a Lakota to be Lakota, a Hopi to be Hopi. A master's degree in Indian studies or in education or in anything else does not make a person into a human being or provide knowledge into traditional ways. It can only make you into a mental European, an outsider. Interesting. Man, people are fucking pissed. I'm sorry that this what's it called? He's obviously speaking in extreme terms, but like he has a very good point about like he makes a very good point about like in like the effect of the way that you consume and preserve and deal with information has on the cultural mind. And like I get where he's coming from. Like in many ways trying to disincentivize the Lakota, disincentivize like the traditional ways Lakotas put themselves, and like replace it with like the dry history of a book. It does in many ways. Like it is a way to erase parts of their society. Like I think Garrett's pointing it out, and this is the thing is like people don't realize how much the scars of colonization are still very, very raw to indigenous people, and that like the anger is fucking real. Like, yeah, this is a big deal. I should be clear about something here, because there seems to be some confusion about it. When I speak of Europeans or mental Europeans, I'm not allowing for false distinctions. I'm not saying that on the land there are the byproducts of a few thousand years of genocidal reactionary European intellectual development, which is bad. On the other hand, there is some new revolutionary intellectual development, which is good. I'm referring to the so-called theories of Marxism and anarchism and leftism in general. I don't believe these theories can be separated from the rest of the European intellectual tradition. It's really just the same old song. The process began much earlier. Newton, for example, revolutionized physics and the so-called natural sciences by reducing the physical universe to a linear mathematical equation. Descartes did the same thing with culture. John Locke did it with politics, and Adam Smith did it with economics. Each of these... Sorry, Phoebe's getting into something that she shouldn't be. Each of these thinkers took a piece of the spirituality of human existence and converted it into code, an abstraction. They picked up where Christianity ended. They secularized Christian religion, as the scholars like to say, and in doing so, they made Europe more able and ready to act as an expansionist culture. Each of these intellectual revolutions served to abstract the European mind or mentality even further, to remove the wonderful complexity and spirituality from the universe and replace it with a logical sequence. 1, 2, 3, answer. This is what has become to be termed efficiency in the European mind. Whatever is mechanical is perfect. Whatever seems to work in the moment, that is, proves the mechanical model to be the right one, is considered correct, even when it is clearly untrue. This is why truth changes so fast in the European mind. The answer, which results from which a process, are only stopgaps, only temporary, and must be continuously discarded in favor of new stopgaps, which support the mechanical models and keep them alive. Hegel and Marx were heirs in the thinking of Newton, Descartes, Locke, and Smith. Hegel finished the process of secularizing theology, and that is, put in his own terms, he secularized the religion, through thinking through which Europe understood the universe. Then Marx put Hegel's philosophy in terms of materialism, which is to say, Marx despiritualized Hegel's work altogether. Again, this is in Marx's own terms, and this is now seen as the future revolutionary potential of Europe. Europeans may see this as revolutionary, but American Indians see it simply as still more of that same old European conflict between being and gaining. The intellectual roots of the new Marxist form of European imperialism lie in Marx and his followers' links to the tradition of Newton, Hegel, and the others. Being is a spiritual proposition. Okay, yeah, this is like I can see from the angle, like, this is the kind of thing that this is the kind of text that I would read in like a master's level in like a decolonization theory or colonial theory class that would warrant a lot of discussion and like a lot of chewing on the source. Like, we would need a few hours to really like get to the nut of the things that are being said here. But I do think that he is like, sure, yeah, he's speaking in terms that might, like, I think that he's actually like he's speaking in terms that might seem like very what would be the good term? Like, yeah, he's calling people out, but I think that for the most part, I think he's showing, or he's expressing a point very cogently of how logic is European. To an extent, it can be, and like talking about how European ideas and led to, or how like nothing essential, but like the sort of like despiritualizing and the reducing of the natural world to simply, interlocking abstractions has an effect on the way that you think about things. And like, that's not wrong. He's not the only person to have ever talked about this. But yeah, replacing I don't know. Like I said, this he talks about like how there's like this tension between the Europeanized mind between being and gaining. Being is a spiritual position. Gaining is a material act. Traditionally, American Indians have always attempted to be the best people they could. Part of that spiritual process was, and is, to give away wealth, to discard wealth in order to not gain. Material gain is an indicator of false status amongst traditional people, while it is, quote, proof the system works to Europeans. Clearly, there are two completely opposing views at work here, and Marxism is very far over to the other side of the American Indian view. But let's look at a major implication of this. It's not nearly an intellectual debate. The European materialist tradition of despiritualizing the universe is very similar to the mental process which goes into dehumanizing another person. And who seems the most expert at dehumanizing other people, and why? Soldiers who have seen a lot of combat learn to do this to the enemy before going back into combat. Murderers do it before they commit murder. Nazi SS guards did it to concentration camp inmates. Cops do it. Corporations' leaders do it to workers. They send they send to workers, they send to uranium mines and steel mills. Politicians do it to everyone in sight. And what the process has in common for each group doing the dehumanizing is that it makes it all right to kill and otherwise destroy other people. One of the Christian commandments says, "Thou shalt not kill," at least not humans. So the trick is to mentally convert the victims into non-humans. Then you can proclaim violation of your own commandment as a virtue. All right. I don't know. This guy is batting 1,000 so far to me, but yeah. In terms of the despiritualization of the universe, the mental process works so that it becomes virtuous to destroy the planet. Terms like progress and development are used as cover words here, the way victory and freedom are used to justify butchery in the dehumanization process. For example, a real estate speculator may refer to developing a parcel of ground by opening a gravel quarry. Developments here means total, permanent destruction, with the earth itself removed. The European logic has gained a few tons of gravel, with which more land can be developed through construction of roadbeds. Ultimately, the whole universe is open in the European view to this sort of insanity. More important here, perhaps, is the fact that Europeans feel no sense of loss in all this. After all, their philosophers have despiritualized reality, so there is no satisfaction for them to be gained in simply observing the wonder of a mountain or lake or a people in being. No, satisfaction is measured in terms of gaining material. So the mountain becomes gravel, the lake becomes coolant for a factory, and the people are rounded up for processing through indoctrination mills, Europeans like to call schools. Fuck. I think that, like, yeah, this is, man, you guys, okay, yeah. This is, okay, I guess, like, the way that I have to break this down is that this does not feel like something that is meant to be for public consumption. This is something that I, like I said, this is like what I was saying about, like, I would read this in a graduate seminar, because it is, it challenges a lot of assumptions made about like the way that we do things, and the ideas expressed are quite polemical. Polemical was the word I kept looking for, and there's a lot of ideas, and yeah, it's very dense, and like this is the kind of reading that you need to read several times and chew on, and really like you have to really do some introspection about it, because yeah, surface reading, it's very easy to, on a first read, just react, to not think, to not digest, to just be like, no, this is challenging my view of the world. I hate it. It's bad. They're being spiritual. They're talking about spiritual. I don't like spiritual. I'm rational logic man. Rational logic is good. There is no time that logic is ever bad. And like, this is a person saying, hey, maybe we should, like, yeah, this guy is definitely a, like, rightfully pissed off indigenous rights activist, but like, and so he's not holding people's hands. He's being like intentionally provocative for sure. But like the point he's making is fairly good. Like, it's the idea that like the way that the European mind thinks to abstract reality and turn everything into resources that we can exploit so that we can grow and make more productivity and develop is like, yeah. I think that like this is, you got to decolonize the mind, man. This is what, like, the thing I was talking about, like, I talked a little bit in my paradox video. I got a new emote. Sweet. All right, I gotta make a new emote when we get. Did I get a new emote? I gotta check. Cause the countery thing doesn't really gets out of touch with reality. According to this, I still need... Yeah, I got a new emote. Shit, everybody. New emote! I think. It says 35 reward. I should have gotten another one. I'm sure it's somewhere. All right, well, I'll figure that out later. But anyways, on this thing, it's very, like, yeah, this is the kind, like I said, if I were to be teaching a undergraduate Indigenous Studies course, this is not the text I'd use. This is something that you need to have. You need to, like, I would probably do it I'd probably do it at a graduate seminar, to, like, be perfectly honest. I'm not trying to, like, it's. Like I said, I'm not trying to, like, talk down to anybody or be condescending, but, like, the ideas in it need to be unpacked, and they need to be digested in a way that, you can't really expect 18 to 22-year-olds to do as homework. So that's why, like I said, like, this is something that I would maybe not the best fodder for a stream, because it would need, like, I would need to have, like, a handful of smart people read this and digest it for a week and then come together and have a real conversation about it, because there's a lot of really good stuff in here. I think this is, like, really well done. It's just it just needs some work. You need to do work to read some of these things. And this is the kind of shit that you read in grad school. So yeah, and I'm also realizing that it is already past 5 o'clock. But it seems to be misunderstanding that, yeah, to say that he's just saying science bad, therefore, like, science is an imperialism, therefore bad. Like, that's a very simplistic reading of this. It's just, yeah. What's complicated about that? Okay, yeah, this is... Maybe you should make a video about this. Maybe I should. Yeah, because, like, there's... This is the kind of like, when people are talking about decolonizing text and talking about, like colonization theory and decolonization work, this is the kind of stuff that comes up, and it is very easy to have a reactionary take to this because you haven't, sat with the material and thought through it for a while. I would love a stream that's just structured like a grad seminar. That would be pretty fun. I would need to get some people together on this, but I would need to, like, this would, in other words, feels and reels. Yeah, like, something makes me think that, like, this guy would not, like, for example, go to a hospital, or, like, if he got sick, go to, like, refused treatment because the medicine was, like, developed by doctors who went to medical school and therefore read textbooks. Like, I don't think that's, like, what's going to come out with, but yeah, it's, for example, yeah, to make the surface reading and to just react is like a thing that Sargon of Akkad would do. And this is a dense polemical text that is definitely trying to be provocative. It is trying to engage you. It is trying to get this reaction that exactly you're having. What I think that he's trying to do is he gets this idea out. It feels like an attack, and like, this dares to have some time to chew on it and to really think through the ideas and come through. But yeah, but the kind of, like, very aggressive, like, reaction that I'm getting from this shows that, like, that is almost like poison to the internet, because this kind of stuff requires, like, attention spans and discussions and introspection, which are all things that, we don't do so good in internet land. So, and also that in our brains that are very much modeled by Western education and stuff like that don't really process well. So, so you get this, like, kind of like bleh, like feeling. And I think that that handling that would require like a seminar and teachers, like somebody who's a better teacher than I am, going through that. But either ways, I just realized that it is 5:05, so we are actually past our time. I'm going to go and find somebody for us to go send things to. Let's go visit Izzy. We haven't seen Izzy in a bit, and we love Izzy, don't we? So let's go raid Izzy. All right, everybody. Have a great week. Obviously, like I said, I'm streaming, or I'm going on vacation next week, so there won't be streams next week. Please enjoy yourselves. I'm gonna be, you know, in the woods, probably reading a book and roasting marshmallows. So I'll be good. But for everybody else, you know, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And yeah, raid Shadow Legends. Peace out, friends. I'll see you on the 14th.